board members circle in the parking lot.
Oh, we do? Looking for, okay. Okay, good morning, everyone. Again, please take your seats. I see some board members just arriving and important audience members just arriving. So we'll wait for a couple minutes. Okay, all right. We're back. Happy New Year to everyone. Hope you had a restful, wonderful holiday break and it brought you all that you wanted. I look forward to the work we're going to be doing together and accomplishing in the new year, in 2026. We are in the future. I'd like to welcome Councilmember Fox from Vista to your first meeting from SANDAG. Welcome. Glad to have you here. I don't know if you've noticed, but we have new paneling on the side here that is to absorb sound. So hopefully we're not as echoey. We've also turned the monitors around so the public can see what's on the monitors. We've moved a speaker to the back to the public seating area so you can hear better. And we're hoping these are improvements that will make the meeting more effective for all of us. I'd like to remind everyone that the 2026 board retreat is scheduled for Thursday, March 19th and Friday, March 20th. Location TBD. Please be sure to mark your calendars if you haven't already done so. Why did I start with that? Okay. Good morning. The January 9th Board of Directors meeting is called to order. First, I'd like to ask our interpreters to explain how to access interpretation. Please go ahead.
Good morning. Announcement from interpreter. To use the interpretation feature, please scroll to the bottom of the Zoom screen where the meeting controls are. Click on the interpretation icon, World, and select English as your language. If you are joining through the Zoom mobile app, cell phone, tablet, etc., please press the ellipsis, then interpretation, and then choose your language. Finally, click on mute original audio to not hear the original Spanish flow in the background. Headsets are available for interpretation. If you're in the meeting room, please check out a headset from the receptionist in the lobby. Buenos días, aviso por parte del intérprete. Para hacer uso del servicio de interpretación, favor de desplazarse a la parte inferior de la pantalla de Zoom donde aparecen los controles. Haga clic en el icono de interpretación globo terráqueo y seleccione Spanish español. Si está utilizando la aplicación móvil de Zoom, celular, tableta, etc., presione los puntos suspensivos, luego interpretación y luego el idioma. Si no desea escuchar el audio original en inglés en el fondo, por favor seleccione Mute Original Audio, silenciar audio original. Contamos con auriculares disponibles para el servicio de interpretación. Si se encuentra en la sala de reunión, favor de pedir auriculares con la recepcionista en el vestíbulo. Gracias. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the land that we call home. The tribal nations of the San Diego region have historically faced injustices. We acknowledge the harmony that existed between the land, nature, and its original peoples who have since endured displacement, persecution, and systemic oppression. We pay our respect to the unceded territory and homelands of the 18 tribal nations in our region, the most in any county in the United States, from 4 cultural groups, the Kumeyaay Digueño, the Luiseño, the Cupeño, and the Cahuilla. This land has nourished, healed, protected, and embraced them for many generations in a relationship of balance and harmony. As members of the SANDAG community, we acknowledge this legacy. We aspire to learn from Indigenous traditional knowledge and experiences in undoing the injustices of the past. Now, please stand and join me for the flag salute. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Michael, can you please confirm quorum?
We do have a quorum, Chair, with the cities of Chula Vista, Coronado, National City, and Poway absent.
Very good. Let's move on to non-agenda public comments. How many do we have?
We currently have 3 in person and we have 4 online. If you are online, please raise your hand now. We have 7 online. And for the purposes of civility and an orderly meeting, we kindly ask that all commenters refrain from using loud, threatening, profane, or abusive language. Per our board policy, the amount of time allowed for each verbal public comment is determined based on the number of agenda items, the complexity of those items, and the number of persons anticipated to offer comment. This allows us to hear from as many people as possible and to complete our business while we still have a quorum. Based on those factors, the chair has determined that today's meeting, each member of the public will be allowed 2 minutes for their comments. First in public comment is Truth, followed by Purita Javier.
Hey, long time no see. It's been wonderful and horrible at the same time. Partly seeing you guys, not seeing you guys. That's part of it. I didn't celebrate Christmas. Who is that? Okay, Roy. But went to 4 tree lightings and 1 bonfire. Saw a dead body, and yes, I'm not lying about that. Had to fight several battles, and also got to hang with a new friend that helped me forget and refocus on goals. And I will say, I like Grovers. There's a hint. This year is America's 250th birthday, and there's no better time than now to ensure transparency, accountability, end hypocrisy, and double standards, and restore the republic. In December, Construction Trades Council minion Catherine Blakespeare pretended to care about highways being shut down and people getting stuck in traffic, while she was the one who pushed for traffic causing stack impacts in Encinitas and tried to impede people from driving by pushing dangerous bike lanes everywhere. What a hypocrite she remains. Next, from a December 22nd independent article, quote, Waymo has suspended service in San Francisco after the autonomous cars caused major traffic jams during a citywide power outage. Without working traffic lights, the driverless cars were seemingly left confused, with many halting in their tracks, stuck at intersections with long lines of drivers piling up behind them, end quote. And there were no reports of anyone being stuck inside the cars because all Waymos are empty because they take up the roads for no reason. So when someone like Kevin is talking about, oh, we should get prepared for autonomous vehicles, no, you shouldn't, because they're a problem. As one online commenter said, it's worrying how gullible so many in public office are of big tech's arrogant claims. Because it's not about transportation options or reducing GHGs. It's about impeding people from driving and owning a car. SANDAG and the state's nefarious goals have not changed. SANDAG's Maria was on TV bragging about recycling Terminal 1 airport junk to reuse at Otay Mesa East, saving $500,000, while the state wasted $4 million on tearing up a quarter-mile of SR 11. Is SANDAG trying to make up those losses? It cost $1.3 billion. Could have gone to
Thank you.
67.
Your time has expired. Next is Prita Javier, followed by Cesar Javier.
Good morning. I am Purita Javier, victim of toxicity from ceramics manufacturing and kiln located, constructed, and even altered, converted, operated in a residential zone dedicated community in the city of San Diego since 1984. Research and study explains the hazards of ceramics. Mesa College, where the owner took his vocational training as ceramics and pottery artist, must have been taught the threat to health and safety. In our investigation with 2 artist members of San Diego Pottery Guild, based on Spanish Village, Balboa Park, explain the same hazards to human. In December 2021, occupational, that means medicine review published is still COVID-19 pandemic that ceramics artists can be exposed to many hazards, including metals such as lead, fibrogen, such as silica, repeat on motion, radiation, and toxic emissions from kilns. This exposure, in fact, admittedly declared by Pottery Guild
Thank you.
members
Your time
that
has
in
expired.
years.
Next is Cesar Javier, followed by Mike Bullock online.
Cesar Javier, victim to this toxicity. Our enjoyment of life in our property, which we pay by money through tax, property tax. I think something is wrong in our city governance. Something is wrong with the leadership of the Air Pollution Control District, which was approved, owned practically by Mayor Gloria and cohorts. APCD leadership is accountable for this mess in our community, including the crisis occurring, obtaining the Tijuana River sewage pollution. Why is this not addressed, Councilor Lacaba? We told the truth, our community concern, people of San Diego, lawful authority, judge. It's no violation. How come? We must investigate the investigators. From the 5 code enforcers, Supervisor Brennan, Flores, Cervantes, Caldwell, and Penman hinted to us the City Hall lawful authorities, the 11 elected officials who are supposed to do their job morally, accordingly.
Thank you. Your time has
Help us.
expired. Next is Mike Bullock online, followed by Andrea Ebbing.
Yeah, thank you. Chair Ebner, Honorable Chair Ebner, I should say, and honorable members of the board. My name is Mike Bullock. I'm a retired systems engineer. I live in Oceanside. And I want to talk about the differences between SB 375, which under which you've negotiated a driving reduction of 19%, and you accomplished that in your just approved regional transportation plan and the CARB scoping plan. One is a law, the other is really just a plan. And as a plan, you're not required to do anything that is in that plan. But we should respect the plan and understand what it is. It was created under AB 32. Under AB 32, CARB was tasked with coming up with a plan to meet California's climate mandates, which really are based on avoiding destabilizing the climate. So it really is a plan for California to do its part to ensure that we survive as a species. We don't destroy our own habitat. So it's very important. And it is 25% reduction in driving by 2030. And there's certain things that you can do. The 3 primary mitigation measures there are, one is to double transit service by 2030 with respect to 2018. And you can play a big role in that. And then the other thing is the pricing of car parking, not the pricing of road use, although that is in there. And so you need to focus on the parking part of it, and that needs to be a mitigation measure in your SCS.
Thank you. Next is Andrea Ebbing, followed by Jeff Huter.
Good morning. My name is Andrea Ebbing, and this morning I'm sharing some information with you, not to get off of my chest, but with the expectation that you will take action. You receive my emails, as does everyone in the House of Representatives, Congress, the feds, everyone. There's nobody that doesn't wake up to what's going on here in San Diego at this moment in time. And yes, things are heating up because we have our very own Somali daycare center fraud going on here in San Diego. It's called a Family Justice Center, which is run by the District Attorney's Office, Summer Steffen. This is a money laundering facility. This is not a victim center. I went there after I had been strangled on video, had my head split open on the wall, was drugged for 3 days, and my children were abducted. My county contracted rehab owner, X, who's a partner and friend of Summer Stephan, and she awarded $5 million along with some other county boneheads who are totally into dope dealing. Instead of helping me, they turned me away repeatedly over and over and over again. In fact, when I went and showed them the video of my head and my strangulation and my ex not denying that he just did it, they told me they had SDPD's some filthy detective come out and tell me that if I came back, I'd be arrested. In fact, they went so far as to build the largest case file South Bay has ever seen on me for the information I'm sharing. The largest case file on the border of Mexico belongs to me with no criminal history, no record, no substance abuse, nothing. Well, this center was run by Mara Elliott at one point, and the Union Tribune caught her for money laundering. And they said to her that this is communication in public records. Can you tell me why the city attorney is directing charitable contributions to an entity that is not legally permitted to conduct business in the state of California? Okay, now Summer Stephan is overseeing it. Casey Gwynn started it, and he said they are not affiliated, they do not follow best practices, and it's not real. Thank you.
Next is Jeff Huter, followed by Leif Gensert.
Yes, thank you, board members. I'd just like to highlight that we still haven't seen anything to do with SB 79 implementation, in particular a map of the transit stops that will be included in this, while the trolley stops are pretty straightforward, and also the sprinter stops are pretty straightforward. There's quite a bit of uncertainty about what will be included as the bus stops. And just to be clear, the bill says that it's only bus routes that have fully dedicated lanes to public transit. So in San Diego on El Cajon Boulevard, we have shared bus bike lanes, which are therefore not qualified. And any bus routes that are being claimed along I-15 that drive in HOV lanes, well, those are shared with cars, and they aren't public transportation either. So it's very few stops, maybe just in Park Boulevard in San Diego, that would qualify according to the bus criteria. It's getting too late to implement the bill for many cities, and there's a bill, SB 677, that's been introduced that actually proposes to expand the locations that will be included by adding in Amtrak and other coaster stops. So, people need to push back against that. The other thing that I just want to highlight is when we're going to be in the process of drawing the major transit stops maps, and one of the things that's come up again and again is that there's deficiencies in the drawing of this map, particularly bus rapid transit proposed routes are not proposed stops, and so those only happen towards the end, and we really need to have that fixed in the map. Thank you.
Next is Leif Gensert, followed by Consuelo.
Good morning, SANDAG. My name is Leif Gensert. I'm the Vice President of RIDE-SD, a local public transport advocacy group. Happy New Year. Welcome into the new year. We're getting started with the regional plan that was approved in the last meeting. I just want to encourage SANDAG, first of all, be a little bit more bold. We want to see the Purple Line implemented as heavy rail all the way to Sorrento Valley, potentially even Mira Mesa. That's one thing. Lacking that, there are lots of good bus corridors planned, and we encourage SANDAG to properly build or properly plan these these bus corridors to have properly implemented bus lanes, dedicated bus lanes for bus only. We also encourage you not to shy away from SB 79. We want to see that as a chance. We need to densify. We need to ask ourselves, are we serious about climate change? And if we are, we need to implement better transit, and we also need to densify corridors so that people are not driving as much into the suburbs. So thank you for that. We will keep advocating for better public transport. We will keep advocating for higher density. Thank you.
Next is Consuelo, followed by Blair Beekman.
Okay, that's some good reception from Davos and the World Economic Forum. Anyways, okay, Consuelo here. I'm here today not because I believe this agency has lost its way, but because I believe it was designed this way from the start. SANDAG was not created primarily to serve the people of San Diego County. It was created to implement regional policies aligned with global planning frameworks that prioritize control, compliance, and profit over individual freedom, local choice, and human-scale living. What's presented as sustainability or progress consistently results in higher costs, reduced mobility, and fewer choices for residents, while developers, contractors, and corporate partnerships benefit. Fear and urgency are used to push these policies through discouraging the real debate and silencing public dissent. We've seen this tactic before on a global scale, and it works only when people stop questioning authority. You don't need consent when you can manufacture compliance. Too many people in this county are afraid to speak up, but 2026 should be the year that changes. If you haven't researched what's happening globally by now, new guy from Vista, whoever you are, it's time. Research United Nations Agenda for the 21st Century, because none of you and none of your families are immune to the consequences of these policies. The systems being built from government to technology to AI are not aligned with nature or humanity. Systems built on control, dependency, and manipulation always collapse. History proves that. This is why people are kept divided, distracted, sick, confused, and exhausted. Dependency is the goal, and so is control. The so-called Great Reset didn't come from conspiracy theories. It was openly discussed at the World Economic Forum, and this is not new, and people are waking up. Humanity will not consent forever. So I'll end with this.
Thank you. Your time has expired. Next is Blair Beekman, followed by Paul the Bold.
Hi, thank you, Blair Beekman. Hi to everyone. Happy 2026. We've gotten off to kind of a tough start. I've been asking for months now that as local communities in San Diego, we have the ability to really ask current ICE raids to be managed in decent ways and not over-militarized. I have to change my tone a bit. I still want to be really asking for those practices here in San Diego County area, but to really, with the clarification that what Trump is doing right now is basically forms of domestic terrorism and state violence. It's fear tactics that have gone the wrong way, and he really needs to mellow out what he's doing on those practices, I feel. I hope we can still talk about the importance of demilitarization with such practices, and really promote that cities like in the Bay Area, like Oakland, they're promoting, a full concept of, not just law enforcement, but social services and really good, health practices for the community. Their violent crime levels have gone way, way down. And we need to offer those kind of ideals and practices to other cities across the country. And Trump and his team needs to really respect that. He respected it for the Bay Area. He needs to start doing that around the country. And with the issues that Venezuela has been going on, it's been nothing but offering an escalation of violence in this country. Thankfully, they're working on negotiation with Venezuela. Hopefully, they can be allowed to determine their own future. But those practices of war are going to be seeping through here at the local level. And we have to be prepared with our best practices of peace. And we do that well. And let's continue to do that in this coming year. It's a lot to work on.
Thank you, Blair. Your time has expired. Next is Paul the Bold, followed by our last public comment of original draw. Paul, you're self-muted. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Thanks. Happy New Year to all. I think we're making progress, looking forward to a brighter future. Last year, you seemed to discourage people from speaking at a few meetings. Hope you can do better this year. This is shutting out the public. Sometimes you put non-routine items on the consent calendar. This isn't right either. But I'm glad to hear of the improvements you made in the room here. Hopefully it will make speaking easier. A mandatory user charge for EVs is only fair since EVs with their heavier weight tend to tear up the roads more and of course pose a greater wildfire danger, so the money should not come from all the taxes on gas-powered vehicles. Hawaii introduced its mandatory road usage charge initiative in 2023 as a means for replacing the projected void of fuel tax revenue as more fuel-efficient hybrid and electric cars continue to become more commonplace. EVs also weigh more and tear up the roads more and use more water and resources to put out any fires. Hawaiians can pay a $50 annual fee or $8 per 1,000 miles up to $50. Through 2028, all electrical vehicle drivers in the Aloha state are required to enroll in the program and have their odometers read annually at inspections. It is expected that by 2033, all light-duty vehicles will also be included. Oregon, along with Utah and Vermont, has voluntary programs in place currently. But Oregonians...
Thank you. Your time has expired. Our last public comment is the original draw.
Here we are in 2026. It's sure going to be interesting because we know that you guys are going to continue to racketeer with our money and totally destroy the planet with all of your implementation of things. And, you know, just put more control down on the people so we can go into our little 15-minute cities. The UN is very proud. But I'm just kind of wondering, as we are sitting here and, you know, doing all of these things to save the planet, right? And, you know, help the environment. Have you guys seen downtown when it gets dark, all the homeless people sitting there? They have to leave early in the morning at about 6 o'clock when Downtown Partnership comes to tell them to leave because it's an eyesore, right? It's so horrible to see that. You do not want to see the piss and shit that's on that street because you know why it's there? It's like there's no bathrooms at night. I mean, where are they supposed to go? Should they just hold it in? Who knows? And then I think about the children and just any soul that is in the county or in living in the world. And we exploit them. You know, we tear families apart. Children get, you know, go to live with their new families, as they call them, all for profit because, you know, Title IV funding is so lucrative to just destroy a child. It's crazy. So I'm just wondering, like, as we're, you know, saving the planet, who are we doing it for? Because you guys don't care about the people. I mean, the things you guys implement actually keep people in danger and impede their ability to get to safety if there was a fire. So it's like, who's this for? Is it even for you guys? Or are you guys trying to implement this for people that you don't even know and that don't even care about you? And they're just using you as puppets to put yourself in your own little 15-minute zones just for them, right? It's interesting to think about. And so 2026 is going to be very, very, you know, telling as far as exposing all the rackets that are going to continue to happen. Because all you guys are going to do is ask for more money from us, give each other raises, and just implement nothing but control. So happy New Year, you guys. And actually, it's not until April 1st, but.
Thank you. Your time has expired. That concludes our non-agenda public comment, Chair.
Thank you. Now it's time for member comments on items that are not on the agenda. Ann Fox from Caltrans is up.
Hi, good morning and Happy New Year to all. Some of you may have been impacted over earlier portions of this week. The U.S. General Services Administration, or GSA, began construction at the San Ysidro Port of Entry this past Tuesday. Their project was a maintenance project which included removing speed humps at the southbound inspection booths and replacing temporary barriers with permanent dividers. They were working on 6 of the southbound I-5 lanes. That work has now concluded. That was phase 1 of work. They finished up early this morning, probably around 2-3 a.m. And just to fair warn, there will be a next phase on that remaining southbound lane. GSA will begin work January 23rd, early in the morning there. So there will still be 6 lanes moving into Mexico, but work will occur on that remaining lane there. So just wanted to give a heads up that there will be a reprieve over the next couple of weeks, and then work will begin on that. Second announcement, a good news story for Caltrans and SANDAG, the Excellence in Transportation Awards. This is an award that's given annually to recognize excellence in transportation design, construction, operations, maintenance, planning, et cetera, throughout California. There are multiple categories within this award, and Caltrans District 11 and SANDAG were awarded the Excellence in Transportation Award in the Climate Action category for one of our Build NCC projects. So this was for the I-5 San Elijo HOV and double track project. So congrats to us on that. Certainly this project, this work included it improved highway and rail facilities, reduced carbon emissions. The work included replacing and lengthening both the San Elijo Lagoon Highway and rail bridges, extended 2 HOVs from Loma Santa Fe to Birmingham, and double tracking the Lausanne rail line. So just wanted to give kudos to here in this forum to SANDAG for our partnership in this project. And we have an award here that we'll send over to you, Mario. So thank you.
Great, thank you. Congratulations to Caltrans and us. Councilmember Edson for NCTD.
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Is your mic on?
It is. Can you?
If you can bring it a little closer.
Okay, how's this? Can you hear me now? Okay, how's this?
Like really close.
Okay. So Happy New Year, everyone. I just wanted to remind everyone that this weekend there will be a weekend rail closure. It's an absolute work window is what it's called. So NCTD and SANDAG will be doing all of the things that we do to our cars when we put them in for service. They'll be happening to the rails and the bridges and whatnot along the Lausanne corridor. So no trains on January 10th or 11th.
Very good, thank you. All right, Mario, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Well, first of all, Happy New Year, and I hope that you all had a great holiday season. I'm happy to introduce Teddy Lowe, the new General Counsel. He started this week, Teddy, so he's here in that room. Teddy, you want to raise your hand? Yeah, and he brings more than 25 years of legal expertise in public service. Just a couple quick other updates that I'm going to be bringing up. And then we'll talk more about the agency on item number 4. The Transportation Committee approved last month the coordinated plan. Key recommendations are enhancing the role of the Consolidated Transportation Services Agency and bring more resources to this function. Planning to recompete the Consolidated Transportation Service Agency's contract in fiscal year 2027. So we will be putting that out to bid. The new contract will expand the scope of the services, address audit recommendations, and related to performance and compliance audits. And like Councilmember Epson mentioned, we will be having this weekend the absolute work window, so I won't go into the details. She already did that. And finally, our offices are going to be closed on Monday, January 19th for the Martin Luther King Day. That concludes my presentation.
Very good. All right, let's move on to the consent calendar. Michael, do we have any public comments on consent?
Yeah, if you are online, please raise your hand now. We have 2 in person. That's Truth, followed by Cesar Javier. Please identify what consent item you're speaking to.
Okay. Item 3.1, for what reason are the minutes no longer showing the times in which board members arrived or left the meeting? because I'm pretty sure Carolina was late for the millionth time. So whoever's going to cross into America from Tijuana needs to leave the day before in order to be on time for these meetings. Thank you. And if the minutes are going backwards on transparency, then I'm going to assume that every board member except Jack, Mitch, and Robin are late from now on. Item 3.2. On December 2nd, another $150 wasted for Lisa to meet with the city of San Diego progressive puppets known as Mid-City Can to discuss how to waste more millions of our tax dollars on allowing children to ride dangerous public transit full of animal abusers and drug addicts. Funny on December 4th discussed no funding for tribal needs and decades overdue safety of highway routes. Where's the public transit for the tribal nations, for example? Misplaced SANDAG priorities continue because special interests continue. I did find a Southern California Tribal Children's Association poster and random updates. Item 3.3, if executive is going to start at 9 a.m., then why is today's executive at 12:30? Maybe that should be the new time so less board members have to stay longer or show up early. And maybe people can just leave if it's boring. What I'm really seeing is a pattern of too many meetings. I participated in 144 last year, down from previous years, but not nearly as down as I had aimed for. Item 3.4. A year-long multi-million-dollar study to think about making decades overdue safety improvements for the 8. Yay, let's celebrate. Why did the project manager change from Andrew Camacho to Rick Brill? Was Andrew fired? Did he fail this project or get reassigned? What does priority years mean? How many years has this project been sitting? Is it really going to take until 2034 to see any action at all? If the funding is $2.4 million via the federal government, then why would some on this board, the crazies, be trying to circumvent federal law and risk this funding? I guess I have to wait for stupid answers later from the political game players. Do I need to name names or can I just point? Can I just point over there? Thank you.
Next is Cesar Javier, followed by Blair Beekman online.
Happy New Year. Consent 3.1 to 3.4 are good, better, best policy and program. In implementing a quality planning and implementation of the element of urban planning, mobility, and circulation. 3.2 is a process of gathering data. APCD calls this community engagement. Reaching people out there, others. The city dubbed this as determining the public pulse of San Diegans like us. I hope they heard our beating of 180 over 100. That's too high of a blood pressure. 3.3, yes. And we recommend as public, please include 100% in person of this membership, particularly City of San Diego elected city officials. We need them for us to learn together. If they cannot, please have them in virtual as much as we could. 3.4, they are our neighbors. They are others. They are what we call in the military political unit of interest. They are others which form the whole mass of the region. I hope Councilor Lacaba and the mayor and the rest of the elected officials will learn from this. We need our neighbors as much as they need us. Thank you, SANDAG. We are learning and we are here to help us learn and teach and vice versa.
Thank you. Your time has expired. Next is Blair Beekman online, followed by Consuelo. Please identify what consent item you're speaking to.
Hi, Blair Beekman, items 3.1 and 3.4. Yeah, all right, to continue. Hi, Blair Beekman. To speak mainly on item 3.4, which is tribal issues, working on amendments to tribal projects, mainly the Willow Interstate 8 issue. Good luck and in continuing efforts. I wanted to say hi to the tribal community. I hope a full participation by the tribal communities. They want to be working towards those goals. It's important, even if projects and programs are questionable, to add input. And I think that's an important concept. Good luck in working on that. And inviting the tribal process more and more to the SANDAG process, I'm hopeful about. There's going to be technology involved, and I've tried to describe many times that there's a future of tech accountability that invites a lot more people to the process. It is not just for a select few deep within government. It's a process that invites all of the public. Anyone who wants to ask questions about our technology feature can now ask. And that's an awesome concept to really consider. So good luck how the tech involved with this project can be open, accountable, good open public policies that are clear to people and understandable. And that relates to, the Transnet issues in your council, in your city minutes from previous items, 3.1. Just a real good luck. The city of Oakland, they just have ended their flock program, flock vendors being the LPR vendor. So they're going for changes, and we can do that. Yes, we can. It's possible. Good luck how we can do that together and working towards a better future. Thank you.
Next is Consuelo, followed by Andrea Ebbing. Please identify what consent item you're speaking to.
Okay. Okay, Consuelo here. Okay, so consent calendar items. Okay, so I'd like to remind the board and the public of the structure and authority of this agency, because consent items often move forward without meaningful discussion. SANDAG originated in the 1960s as a regional planning coordination body, and over time, its authority expanded through state and federal designation, including its role as the region. Can you honk? As the region's metropolitan planning organization and regional transportation planning agency. Today, SANDAG is not an elected body, yet it controls significant public funding and sets long-term regional priorities that directly affect mobility, cost of living, and land use patterns and quality of life across our county. Because of that, consent calendar items should not be treated as routine or administrative by default. Many of these items implement or advance long-range regional plans that the public has limited opportunity to influence after the fact. I'm asking this board to be more transparent about which consent items materially advance regional policy and to pull those items for discussion when they affect residents' daily lives, funding priorities, or local decision-making authority. So my question is this: at what point does efficiency become substitute for public consent? Thank you.
Next is Andrea Ebbing, followed by the original draw. Please identify what consent item you are speaking to.
Good morning. My name is Andrea Ebbing, and I'm going to speak on the 3.3 and 3.4. So I wanted to just talk about these meetings and kind of what is taking place from the legislative calendar standpoint. I think we need to improve the visibility and the upload of these videos and ensure that keywords aren't blurred out, because that keeps on happening. If you say something like strangulation or summer Stefan or dope dealers or opioid distribution or awarding millions of dollars to rehab owners who are body brokering, insurance fraud, we can't keep on blurring those words out. That's one thing. The other thing is I really appreciate the candor and the kind of like open dialogue that's been happening lately. Rebecca Jones in particular, I really like your line of questioning and not kind of allowing that skirting, dancing type of behavior to distract you. So I like that you keep digging. So that's really appreciated. Mario, I'm going to request that you please stop chalking everything up to an emergency. Sorry, but the amount of emergencies and just had to do it and just, that type of stuff, those answers do not suffice. We need real answers. And we don't just consent to it was an emergency, therefore we did $5 million. We want receipts. In terms of the program and budget amendments, the tribal projects, I will implore everyone with the expectation again of action to please go on to sdvote.com, look at Summer Steffen's contributions. I was just on there last night. I was looking at her 460 forms. That's what you need to look at. And we need to really audit who's paying her. Many tribes are paying her. Many infrastructure PACs are paying her. And she thinks, and everybody thinks, oh, these PACs are a great way to hide the money. They're really not. We can see exactly where everything's going and how they're coming in. It's just the PAC name that they're hidden under. Thank you.
Next is the original draw, followed by our last public comment. Paul the Bold, please identify what item you're speaking to.
Yes, as far as this legislative calendar goes, I mean, I think that we could just end all the meetings and, really just go in and audit SANDAG, the entire entity, and where you're, shuffling money around, which goes into 3.4, because it's like you guys sit here and, you make plans, and then later on you take money and put it from here to there, and then that other project suffers, and it's like there's no wonder why things take forever or things are never implemented. It's because of the people that you contract with that, ask for more money, and then you guys continue to do it. Because nothing is ever, costs as much as you plan it out. And then, you'll say things like, Andrea was talking about things being in an emergency. So you have to do all of these things, but it just shows that you guys are, negligent with the people's money, because, if you were really productive, we would see, things flourishing. Things wouldn't be, transit wouldn't be, just a problem. It would actually be easy and people would want to ride it. You wouldn't have to, change people's behaviors or direct them into a new way of living, because that's what you guys are doing and that's what you spend our money on. And that's what is so ridiculous, is that you care more about changing people's behaviors and guiding them into something than actually making sure that people can, live life and actually, be able to provide, their families with things, because everyone's giving you all their money, thanking you for, doing nothing but putting in implementations of control and making it harder for people to get around. You don't make it easier. And the way that you guys, use language to make people, to paint a pretty picture, to make people think that you're making things better, all you have to do is look at the world around us and see that, people are suffering. And, you again care more about the planet than making sure that even somebody has a home and they don't have to, live on the streets. But yeah, good for you guys.
Our last public comment is Paul the Bold. Please identify what consent item you're speaking to.
Repeated Los Angeles rail closures on the weekend are too much. Legislative calendar. I'm glad the audit committee is meeting once a month. Also, that board meetings are set regularly for the second and fourth Fridays, but not sure why the exec committee is not meeting in July and November. Mostly, this is a good schedule. Hope there are no additions. Hope there are additions, but no subtractions. The budget amendments. Don't see any tribal projects, as the title of this item says. Item 3.2 mentions SR 76 as a tribal priority, but I have a feeling that the need for projects was a regional issue, not a tribal issue originally. Perhaps there would be projects if they had the vote. Maybe we should discuss this. What is the status on getting voting members for the East County and tribal areas? On the other hand, I'm glad that these were labeled or relabeled as tribal priorities, but it looks like the funding shift would also delay the environmental document by a year for both projects. Not sure why, if this is a real priority. And I'm not sure why you're changing project manager for both projects in mid-project. Meetings and events. It would be nice to know what Chair Hebner and Vice Chair LaCava actually said or what issues they spoke on. In particular, what is the status of YP funding? And where are we on getting a voting seat? And I thought it was actually 2 seats for the tribal
Thank you.
area.
Your time has expired. That includes our public comment on consent agenda, Chair.
Thank you, Michael. Are there any board member comments on consent? I see none. May I have a motion to approve consent? Moved by Minto, second by Chavez. Please vote. Yeah.
The motion passes unanimously.
Very good. All right, now we're going to the 2025 year in review and 2026 look ahead. So this item gives us an opportunity to reflect on what was a very full and demanding year for this board and to look ahead at how we continue moving the agency forward in the next year, 2026. 2025 was an especially busy year for SANDAG and this board. Last year, we met 27 times compared to the normal, typical 21 meetings in a standard year. This reflects not only the volume of work before us last year, but the seriousness with which this board approached its responsibilities and commitment to giving up so many Fridays. Throughout the year, the board remained focused on advancing the agency's core work, which is planning, building, preserving, and providing transportation solutions for the region, while also addressing important organizational and governance issues. A significant part of our work in 2025 was strengthening this agency itself. Through audits and the recommendations provided by Courtney and her team and Shanae, the board identified opportunities to improve processes, procedures, and training across the organization. As we look ahead, staff will be working under our direction and oversight to implement these improvements. The board also took deliberate steps in 2025 to strengthen our legal function and reinforce trust and accountability. We identified the changes we wanted in how the legal team supports the agency and reports to the board, and we moved forward with hiring a new general counsel. This was an important governance milestone and a key investment in the agency's long-term health. Taken together, the work highlighted in this year in review reflects a board and an internal staff that are deeply engaged, not only in delivering regional outcomes, but ensuring SANDAG operates with integrity, clarity, and public trust. I want to thank my fellow board members and staff for the time, the focus, and the dedication shown throughout a demanding year, and I look forward to continuing our work in 2026. I'll now turn this over to Mario to look ahead.
Thank you, Chair. In front of you, you'll find the copy of the fiscal year 25 annual report. The chair emailed this to you last month, but we wanted to highlight it here today because we hope it helps you share the story of SANDAG with your communities and with your city councils. The accomplishments in these reports are a reflection of your leadership and the hard work staff has done in this agency, as well as our partners. Whenever I give a presentation on SANDAG, I start with this slide because it really demonstrates who we are and why are we here. We are the Regional Transportation Agency, Consolidated Regional Transportation Planning Agency that works for the region. The public pays some tax dollars to the federal government, the state government, as well as the locals, and that fund, some of those funds get sent to us so we can work on the region's needs. We plan our transportation system. That's the roads, the highways, the bike lanes, anything that helps us move people and goods around this region. Transportation projects of different sizes, like Pershing Drive in Balboa, like huge projects like the new Alta Mesa East Port of Entry. We also build projects of, like I said, all sizes, from small ones like new bus routes, bus stops, improving what we already have, and also like the 11 miles of the Blue Line extension to UTC. But we're not the operators. We rely on the partnerships with our local partner agencies, North County Transit, MTS, and our partners of the state with Caltrans, as well as all your cities. But we also preserve our national resources and make sure that our work supports the safe, healthy environment. And lastly, we provide resources directly to our communities, like our free youth opportunity pass or funding to local cities to fix potholes or to build more housing and many more items. In the planning realm, I have to highlight that we adopted the regional plan. It's a huge endeavor. We started the environmental work on the Lausanne realignment. And we completed important planning work to get us closer to construction and key projects to our region. Just some of them. This doesn't cover all of them. You have them in your report. The Palomar grade separation, airport transit, State Route 52, State Route 78, the Purple Line, and many more. In the building arena, we also completed and started with our partners construction on important bikeways and projects all along the coast, and the entire county, supporting multiple supporting agencies and on their construction projects also. This is done with those federal, state, and local funds that come through us. I keep hitting the button. I'm sorry, I'm getting mixed up with buttons here. On preservation, we have done a whole array of work on the preservation sites that we own, the 9,000 acres. But we also had kicked off in collaboration with Caltrans, the Border Resiliency Plan, and we'll start important outreach on this work in the coming weeks. What can I say on all the services? They're on the slide here. There are innumerable services that we provide to the communities on an array of areas, and they're continuing to grow, and that's so important. Transnet is an important piece of the funding of this agency, and this just highlights 92 active new capital projects, 48 active Transnet grant projects, and 155 active Transnet local projects. This is what you all are doing and approving and overseeing and helping us get it done. Now into the meaty stuff. What's coming up? There's some important subjects. There'll probably be some additional ones in the future, but some of the ones I wanted to highlight are managed lanes and back office. We are going to be having many conversations with this board over the coming months about the future of managed lane system and back office system. As I've said before, managed lanes are coming. We are fully funded for 2 projects to go to construction within the next few years on managed lanes. This board has a very important role in deciding what those lanes will look like and how they will be operated. Regarding board policies, we started this work last year, like the chairwoman mentioned, and we will continue this year making sure that we're complying with the ever-changing state and federal landscapes, updating our policies to split the different procedures out to meet those 2 different requirements are going to be important to handle. This will help us ensure that we have the right internal control frameworks to put in place. Regarding our budget in the Transnet program, building off the project delivery strategy you reviewed last fall, we will be bringing to you the fiscal year 2027 budget in just a couple of months. We also want to take the time this year to review our major Transnet programs. We heard from you that it may be time to take a look and see what makes most sense in this region now. Let's remember, the Transnet ordinance, the existing one, was passed about 20 years ago. So this is the time to look at it. What makes sense? What have we learned What are the current needs in our region? And what's our real capacity to achieve items, things, projects? Whether it's in the bike program, the major corridor program, the environmental mitigation program, or the funds for transit operators. We would like to work with all of you to review and ensure that we're on the right track and we're following your lead. Regarding project delivery and monitoring, in order to do that, we need to have more data to show what is actually going on. We will be focusing on our project monitoring, budget, scope, cost, schedule, as well as the project risk. Continuing to build our capital and program project management department and working with the Transportation Committee to ensure that we're getting the updates out there. So you're going to start seeing in the Transportation Committee more project updates, but with clear metrics. So you could really hold us honest to what we're delivering based on the scope and schedule. Regarding the grants program, there's no question there's room for improvement here. We started an internal reorganization of our grants team, and we have implemented stronger QA/QC practices. We have also started conversation with regional partners like the regional EDC to explore how we may be able to partner with more philanthropic organizations to leverage funding and deliver our grant programs in a more consistent and reliable manner. You may say philanthropical agencies. We did a very successful partnering last year with the San Diego Foundation, where we were able with the REAP dollars to work on delivering or helping to deliver about 1,000 dwelling units in San Diego. Why not look into more partnerships with philanthropy for the housing grants and expanding that and leveraging that? The CEO performance evaluation, the department assessment, the core competencies, and the corrective action plans. My performance evaluation will happen in July. And as part of that, we will continue to discuss my assessment of enterprise risk. Working with our internal controls director, Shanae, we are working on important progress in identifying the areas throughout the agency that we may need to focus on. This is being informed by independent assessments and internal function reviews that we have been doing to make changes, not only to our organizational structure, but also to know how we are actually doing and how we can get things done better. Updating, developing, and organizing our procedures will reinforce transparency and accountability and reduce project costs and create operating efficiencies within the organization. We are working very closely with our HR director to build out the framework of the agency's core competencies. Later this year, we will also initiate the comprehensive review of our classifications internally. When we bring all this together, we will be able to focus on reinforcing and implementing our other recommendations, not just only the ones from OIPA and Transnet, but also from our outside agencies. This is really going to help us to be more transparent, more nimble, and more efficient in the delivery of our different responsibilities. So we have a lot of work to do next year or this coming year.
That we do. Thank you for that overview. We're going to go to public comments now, and then we'll take member comments.
We have two in-person, Chair, and if you are online, please raise your hand now. The first is Truth, followed by Cesar Javier.
So no plans for less meetings. Oh man, you guys took too long uploading your year in review. You only provided about 2 days to skim, if I remember correctly. I also noticed that almost none of the projects planned in 2025 actually happened or got close to happening. Maybe that's a good thing because I only like 2 of the projects. I like very few of the 2025 highlights. Sorry, it mostly looks like a list of wasted tax dollars to me. My version of the year in review, I had many days eaten up by boring SANDAG meetings. Sometimes the best part was what some of you don't appreciate, the SANDAG sandwiches. But most times, the best part was the private conversations about life with many of you in this room. And sometimes the best part was when the meetings were over and I escaped to my fun places throughout the county and all of your wonderful cities. Not everybody has a wonderful city, sorry. But there were many good memories, too many for me to remember without looking back into my notes. But the last meeting of the year, as boring as it was, boy, were there some good laughs I'll never forget. Reindeer ears and pledges of allegiance. One of the worst SANDAG memories of 2025 is actually going to be repeated in the next item when we discuss going backwards to the era when SANDAG sucked. After that nonsense political theater show is over, we can discuss plans consisting of how to have a year in review where all SANDAG corruption has been completely cleaned up, when all board members arrived to every meeting on time, where East County actually had projects completed, imagine that, where all projects approved by this board were projects that were real community consented to, not union grifters, where sidewalk and highway expansion was no longer denied, where public transit safety was finally addressed, where equity is dead and equality is embraced, when all board members are attentive to speakers, where the unnecessary distance of this boardroom was remedied, and where these meetings were streamed live on YouTube, still waiting that, it's very important to me. And when Mario knows his buttons from one another, not much to ask. But overall, I will say that 2025 was a major improvement for SANDAG. So good job to the people who were there at that transition time in 2024 to 2025, because not everybody deserves credit, but you know who you are. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Cesar Javier, followed by Consuelo online.
Last year, we have discussed predominantly on all about matters on public trusts. And this input was amplified by Honorable Mito of Santi. Lesson learned. What have we progressed in this particular subject? Number 2, remember the I-5 stand-to for 5 hours? It is an indicator of medical term aneurysm. Emergency, crisis, lesson learned. In the report, no less than by the effort of the leadership of SANDAG, focuses one in conservation. Does it mean we have to conserve what is happening in Tijuana TJ crisis, sewage pollution? May we know, as lesson learned, who are supposed to be accountable? 1993 is the beginning of that crisis, which was presented to us by Councilor Moreno, the leadership of District 8, City of San Diego. What have we done, thinkers, to help our city? Accountability, lesson learned by the 11 elected officials of City of San Diego. There is reason to believe that this is
Thank
the
you. Your
term
time
of
has expired.
Councilor.
Next is Consuelo, followed by Mike Bullock.
My turn, Moni. Okay, so Consuelo here. Okay, year in review, 2012. Okay, and the 2026 look ahead. As this agency reflects on accomplishments, it's important to ask accomplishments for whom. Not every project, policy, or initiative necessarily benefits the residents of San Diego County. Some priorities here to align more closely with the broader regional or global agendas rather than the daily needs, mobility, and quality of life of the people who live here. As we move into 2026, this board should focus on measurable accountability, public transparency, and ensuring that long-range plans actually serve local residents, not just abstract mandates or distant objectives. Efficiency and ambition are meaningless if they do not translate into tangible improvements for our community. Public trust depends on clear explanations of how decisions are made, how priorities are set, and how residents' voices meaningfully influence outcomes. The majority of this county doesn't even know SANDAG exists. So I would hope that you can make it, make it more known that you guys are actually in existence. Yep, make a left. This includes not only publishing reports, but pausing to assess whether projects genuinely reflect the needs and values of our county. I encourage this board to slow down where necessary, critically evaluate whether policies align with local benefit, and ensure that efficiency and progress do not come at the expense and accountability, equity, or well-being of residents. True progress is measured. True progress is measured by, I'm sorry, my kid is driving. True progress is measured by the positive impact on the people you serve.
Thank you. Your time has expired. Next is Mike Bullock, followed by the original draw.
Yeah, thank you, Chair and Board and Director Orso. I want to comment, starting off on the managed lanes, which the Director talked about. And I think it's important that we're always clear as to whether these managed lanes are from existing lanes or if they're new lanes. And if they are new lanes, the problem with that, of course, is induced traffic demand. We're going to increase vehicle miles traveled, and we have to do just the opposite. And also on managed lanes, and where we should be headed, I believe, in 2026, is I think SANDAG needs to become an advocate for managing all lanes better, and in recognition of the inadequacy and the fact that the California gasoline tax has no future. Money doesn't grow on trees. That's how we get money to build and maintain our transportation system. And since the gas tax, the California gasoline tax is a lot of money, 57 cents or so a gallon, that's the big tax. It needs to be replaced. We need to get rid of it. It's very regressive, and we need a means-based road use charge, and it has to have features which ensure that it is fair for people at all income levels. Low-income people need to drive, and so that's why it does need to be means-based. And it also has to have a payout system which makes sense. And that is that the entity, the city that maintains the road should get the money from the miles that are driven on its roads. And so that's a payout system, which is also
Thank
necessary.
you. Your time has expired. Next is the original draw, followed by Blair Beekman.
Money does not grow on trees, but you know what? It's printed out of thin air. How cool is that? It's interesting. I'm wondering how you guys can represent people when they don't even know you exist. Because then you can't, but you have to say that so that, people think that you're doing what benefits them when it really just benefits a global agenda in the pockets of those implementing the things or just pretending to. Everything that you guys are talking about is basically just showing, like, when you say things like you want to leverage housing grants, you can't even provide transportation, good roads, making sure that people can get around even safely, yet you want to dabble into other things. You guys need to stay in your lane, because, all you do is you care about money to take from here and put to there, virtue signal as though you're going to be providing some kind of philanthropic like housing opportunity when we already know what's going on with the housing racket. But it just shows that you guys want more money, because you sit here and you implement things like preserving land, which doesn't even really get preserved, bringing in all of these environmental reviews, which is all based off of propaganda, implementing managed lanes to basically control people's movement. It has nothing to do with saving the planet. It has everything to do with making sure that someone can't go from point A to point B. And it's just very disturbing to see that you guys, people thank you for doing these things. And, everything that you're doing is taking the money from the people to pretend to implement stuff. And we can see that your projects take, decades at a time. And then even when you say something and is an emergency, like, preserving the planet and protecting the environment, think about the Tijuana River Valley, and that's been an emergency for how long? And how many decades has it been trying to be fixed? And we're just like, we're gonna really do it. That's how you guys treat an emergency, and that's how you treat everything that you're doing. And it's all money grabs. Anything you can do to get money is what you do, but you don't care about anything else.
Next is Blair Beekman, followed by Paul the Bold.
Hi, Blair Beekman. Thank you for seeing my hand. Thanks for this item. What I'm interested in into 2026 into 2027 is Mario very nicely reported about a year ago now that by 2027, SANDAG has to be really considering the future of their budget issues. And to me, that started a whole trend that I've been seeing in transit communities around the state, that they're going through the same thing. 2027 is a big economic year for transit agencies and what they're going to be doing for their future. I think it is a time to try to make clear right now that what we can be working on in 2026, that it shouldn't be about how we should be talking about service cuts and raising fares. I think pre-COVID, we were really talking about a really more creative future for transit. The New York mayor is talking about, no fare service for their city. That's one example. I just think there can be a lot of good economic models out there available from 2027 onward to address our future transit issues that doesn't involve service cuts and raising of fares. And I really hope we look into that and exploring that and really looking for creative solutions instead of the same old, same old. So that's my big wish and what we can be working on this year. I'm glad that Truth is around still, and that seems like her situation's getting settled. Good for her, and nice she's here. I also wanted to remind once again that we know how to work towards peace here at the local level really well, especially in California. Good luck what we can be doing at this time and offering concepts of peace and good policy making when people are offering us war. I think we can really address war through best practices, and we can show them really good examples. Good luck on our efforts, what we'll be doing in
Thank you. Your time
2026.
has expired. Our last public comment is Paul the Bold.
Okay, I'm sure you're thinking hard of what accomplishments you did in the midst of all your budgetary turmoil and repeated audits. Glad you included the presentation in the agenda. A big disappointment, though, is how you claim the Del Mar Bluff stabilization is a success. The success will be when you move the train off the bluff like you should, hopefully far away from those eroding cliffs and beaches. One key topic for discussion in 2026 needs to be why so many audit recommendations are approved but are still undone after more than 5 years. I expect a review at every board meeting. Another key topic needs to be getting rid of the SR 125 tolls and the status of tolls and fees on the other roads and freeways and pay-as-you-go ways in this county. Another key topic is voting representation for the South and East, North and South and East County, and for the North and South tribal areas in this county, and whether voting should be by city or by region. I think region is better. Unmanaged lanes, you need to do it fairly, not discriminate against certain people like South County and SR 125, not impose fees on just gas-powered vehicles, and not make all the other lanes too narrow when you do your managed lanes. And now that you've wasted money on bikeways, maybe you can waste more money on making them safe. And then also finding people to
Thank you. Your
use
time
them.
has expired. That concludes our public comment on this item, Chair.
Great, thanks, Michael. All right, let's hear from the board. Mayor Jones, you're first.
Thank you so much, Chair Hebner. First of all, Happy New Year to everyone. Hope you had good holidays. I'm excited actually about our goals, one of them being our internal controls, because we will end up, and one of our speakers brought it up, we will end up having an improvement in our audits because we actually have better systems in place by improving the structure, the processes, which will lead to efficiencies, and then also, of course, financial savings, which we all want. And then also the transparency part. And we had talked about having a report back to the board of directors. I can't recall off the top of my head how often we're going to have those. Maybe you could answer that, Mario. Sorry to put you on the spot on this.
I'm not sure when we set it up. Oh, Shanae is here. So I know she's been working on it.
Good morning.
Good morning, Shanae Pickney-Forrest, Director of Internal Controls. At this point in time, we are definitely scheduled for a meeting in March. And then we will have, at that meeting in March, we can determine the cadence, but I'm thinking it's on a quarterly basis with the executive committee.
Perfect. And then to the full board of directors, how often will that be? Do we?
I think that will be a discussion at the executive committee.
Okay.
And we are focusing the work with the executive committee to help us manage and guide us, give us that guidance. So we will be having that discussion at that March timeframe.
Okay, and then, we could, even if it's just an informational item, is this what's going on, this is where we're at, I think it would be helpful for the whole board so that we will feel aware. Okay, perfect. And then thank you very much for that. And then also, I have a question about Transnet. You had mentioned, Mario, that we were going to be revisiting the priorities and then also potentially, looking at how, if projects make sense. My question is, because we voted for Transnet countywide, the voters did, how is that going to translate into us making changes? Because for me, if we're going to make major changes, not just small shifts in projects, I think it would be something that we would need to take back to the voters. So just a question on that, and how would we do that?
We will be bringing up, having a priority discussions, needs discussions, but then based on the outcomes of that, we will also look at what did the ordinance say, right? And what can the board do and what the board cannot do. I'll give you an example. The mitigation funds are broken up into two buckets. One is local mitigation and another one regional mitigation. We have accomplished most of our regional mitigation, and that's where the 9,000 acres are, right? We need to transfer that eventually to some nonprofits or whatever organizations with endowments. We need to figure out how we pay for that endowment to transfer those properties. But yet the local, and we will come with more details, but the local bucket of Transnet for local environmental mitigation hasn't been tapped at all. So there are funds there standing. So we will bring to the board a discussion of, can the local environmental mitigation bucket help the regional one for the endowments or not? We're not making that decision. We're going to come, and parse it out in different discussion items and clearly talk about what the ordinance is, what it has, what can it be done, and what cannot be done. That has to go to the borders.
Yeah, and something like that actually makes sense to me because obviously we don't want to have a piece of property that's an orphan piece of property sitting there with no mitigation funds to actually keep it cut back or fenced or whatever. We want it to actually be meaningful and that it is protected land. So that would make sense. I guess I would be more concerned with eliminating large projects, changing, having a full shift of what we, presented to the voters, because, they trusted us with a 0.5 cent sales tax. We need to be able to provide to them. And I think that's where, our internal controls comes in, to where we actually can prove to them, this is what we've done. Here's what I think that needs to be part of the conversation, letting people know what we've actually done, but also knowing that we've got constraints of how far we can shift little things like that. Like I would have no problem with, protecting our habitat and having the funds to actually do that. I think that would be a good thing. However, if we're talking about eliminating large projects where there's a value to our residents, I would have a problem with that.
No, for sure. And it'll be a robust discussion, and probably the biggest piece of the discussion is going to be the priorities,
right,
of what gets delivered first, right? It's everything has value to somebody, right? It could be different interest groups, but we can't do it all at once.
Right. And so when that comes back, could we also, part of the reporting part, have this is what we've spent so far in like large scale projects like transit and that sort of thing, just so that we all know exactly where we're at, because I know there was a number out there that we had spent a lot of this, and it requires long-term planning for the trolley, and then also and less more toward the roads where, everyday folks that are, relying on their car to actually get to work and that sort of thing, where they rely on roads to actually do that. So that would just be great if we could have, just the whole comprehensive, here's where we came from, here's what we've done thus far, this is what we've spent, and then move it forward. Thank you.
And I was just going to add to that, of course, we've got ITalk as well.
Yes,
who's overseeing all of this.
Yes.
And I do recall that the ordinance says that if changes are to be made, it has to be a supermajority vote of the board. And given that it was a 40-year measure, it was in the voting measure, that we all know that changes will come and priorities will change, but it's got to be a high bar for anything to be altered from transit.
Yes, and it runs through 2045, correct?
48, 46, something like that.
The last time I actually looked it up on ChatGPT,
Yeah.
I think I brought that up. I don't remember.
It was voted on in 2004, so it's a 40 years. So maybe it didn't start right away. So maybe it's 2046.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
It started 2008? Oh, okay, 2008.
Of
Okay,
2000,
so 48 then probably.
All right,
Okay,
thanks.
great. All right, Vice Mayor Cazares.
Thank you. Happy New Year to everyone. As you all know, last year was my first year representing La Mesa on the board. And so I want to start by thanking our CEO, Mario Orso, our chair and our vice chairs, and especially SANDAG staff for making sure that I was up to speed. Even though I've been watching SANDAG for years, it is quite different when you're actually part of the decision-making process. So I'm very grateful, especially to Ariana and Francesca. They have been tremendous. So I want to say first, as we move forward on managed lanes, I think we need to be very deliberate and careful with the decisions that we make and take our time as we're making those decisions, because as we have been fixing issues from toll lanes and other things, I can see this being an issue in the future if we're not extremely careful. I trust that this board will be careful and we will have a lot of oversight and transparency, because I am supportive of this, but I just want to make sure that we are extremely deliberate in those decisions as we make them moving forward. I also think we need to continue working closely with MTS to share what is being done, because the perceived safety of the trolley is unfortunately not improving in the general public. And I would really like to see us be able to share more about what SANDAG has done and what there's great information in the annual report, but no one except for some of our folks that come regularly is going to read this and other policy wonks around the region. So I think ensuring that we take bite-sized pieces and share those on social media and in the news is going to be extremely critical moving forward. And I also agree that continuing to improve transparency and oversight is critical. And a great way to do that is providing that information in those bite-sized pieces so that we can have more oversight from the public when they know what we're doing and they know that we exist. Because I agree, I think 3 speakers said that no one knows we exist outside of this room. That's pretty much true. As someone with a lot of folks in my life outside of this world, they have no idea what we do. They don't understand. And I think we've improved that a lot in recent years. But unfortunately, the way that we've had to improve it has been essentially fixing and apologizing the bad things SANDAG was known for. And I think we're starting to be positioned in a place where we can start sharing more about the great things that SANDAG is actually able to do for the region. And I don't know the background of if we have tried YouTube streaming before, but I agree with Truth. I think that's a good idea. And I'm happy to talk offline about the way we do streaming in the city of La Mesa. Finally, everyone on the board has been working so well together. Again, doing policy work before this. I have watched SANDAG for years. I have watched SANDAG in really negative spaces and I've been so proud of being on SANDAG and the way that everyone has worked together. But it also wasn't an election year last year. And so I reminded everyone on the La Mesa City Council of this because we've all been working really well together. But I just want to remind everyone that we do better work when we pretend it's not an election year. So I want to encourage everyone to continue working together and not be focused on any potential elections that you're involved in. Thank you.
Thank you. Good point. And on one of the other points that you made, don't forget, all of us have an obligation because of AB 805 to make a report to our councils on what we've been up to. And then, so we've got this booklet. So prepare your reports and give your reports at your council meetings, and we'll maybe spread the word a little bit more about what's all the good work that SANDAG does. Thank you. All right, Ms. Maxson, you're up.
Happy New Year. Low-income people disproportionately have job site-based employment. So those who provide in-person healthcare, work in the trades, food industry, they have a higher exposure to traffic congestion, the unhealthy fumes. They are exposed to the dangers of travel, loss of time, expenses for fuel, insurance, etc. Does SANDAG have data on the cost in dollars spent on transportation for households of different incomes? And or do you have the percentage of household budget spent on transportation broken out by different incomes? And how does SANDAG calculate the impact of projects and goals on our lower income population in 2026? And how does SANDAG mitigate those impacts on our lower income residents? Thank you.
We can get back to you on all that information you requested.
Thanks. Mayor Minto.
Well, good morning and Happy New Year. It's interesting listening to all the comments, not only from people in the audience, but the people around the table. And I'd like to offer a couple of perspectives about the year in review and why we're at today. You know, there was a time we sat around this table and things just kind of moved along. There was never any kind of, argument or anything. We had a really good leadership, although we didn't know what we didn't know at the time. And that was that when we went out for Transnet, there were some bad numbers involved. And we found that out when it was too late. So some of the projects that were supposed to be covered by Transnet, they can't be covered by Transnet. And a lot of people don't even understand what Transnet is. And even though it's a tax, it's an ability for this organization to go out for bonding pretty much. And then the taxes pay for that bonding. And that's the way all governments work, regardless of what the level is, because nobody has, for instance, $2 billion sitting in the bank, unless you're the federal government, maybe, well, I'd say the state government, but we know that they're short more than a couple $1 billion. So what happens is we come along, and a few short years ago, we had a change in the way business was done at SANDAG and became very not transparent. And many of not just board members, but staff members and whatnot were kept in the dark about what was going on. And even though and it was done very well, it was covered up very well, in my opinion. And so we did have a change in that philosophy when we found out how bad things were, when we found out what we didn't know. And this board of directors has changed a lot over the last 2 to 3 years, not just in philosophy, but in personnel, board members, and people that have bought into the idea of doing the right thing for the right reason. We may not have made all of our accomplishments that we said we're going to make and do and build things over the last, 5 years or last year. Obviously, it's going to take more than a year to 2 years to really correct the way we go. I can tell you today that we are working better together than we have in a long time. And where I have been critical and have not had good things to say about SANDAG, they've turned around. I brag about the members of this board of directors all the time, because I think you have put aside all the partisanship that was there before. Well, if it's not good for my city, I'm not voting on it. What's good for the region? Now we do vote on it and we try and make plans. When we saw today, things like 52, 67, 125, and the 78 listed specifically, things that we have complained about or some people have complained about over the years, it's good to see that that was listened to and now they're actually in the projects. It's going to take a while for us to get there. Also want to remind everybody that SANDAG doesn't do things on the freeways. They don't build HOV lanes. They don't expand. They don't make bridges. What we do is we work collaboratively with the state of California and Caltrans, because Caltrans is the people that are responsible for all that work. But what we help to do is make recommendations where to do that work, how to do that work, and then we help fund that work. So that's important for us to know, that if the state of California doesn't say, okay, we're going to do it, then it doesn't get done, because we can't go out there with shovels and bulldozers and, picks and whatever and do the work. Also, we're not the Metropolitan Transit Service. What we do is we work collaboratively with them also and help fund them in areas. We cannot dictate to them what they do or what they don't do because they have their own board of directors. And some people here even serve on that board of directors. So when we hear complaints about MTS, we hear complaints about Caltrans or the freeways or things of that nature, this board of directors does not have anything to do with that other than try and influence and collaborate. So I like for people to keep that in mind, do the best we can. Not only that, but as far as local roads and things like that, SANDAG is a great help to help fill those potholes, maybe give some grants and do some funding for some street alignments. But you know what? SANDAG doesn't do the work on those streets in our municipalities either, or even in the county. So we have to rely on each of our city councils and our board of supervisors to get that work done. But you know what? This is a board that helps work and collaborate with them too. And they've done better in the last year than I've seen in a long time. And I have seen things, even though it's not as fast as some of us like to see it get done. I've seen it get done over the last year. And so I think that we have a lot of work ahead of us. And like you said, let's not, talk about as if we're campaigning. I'm done. I'm not campaigning anymore. This is my last go round. So whatever you hear from me, hate me or like me, doesn't matter, because I'm going to tell the truth. And you know what? Because nobody's going to reelect me or not reelect me. So it's always going to be about the truth. So anyways, I just wanted to say that. And I want to say thank you for everybody for all your hard work that we've done over the last year. And I know that there's a lot more to come. Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor Minto, for that perspective. Appreciate it. Mayor Sanchez.
Thank you, and Happy New Year. I want to say that I really, really appreciate, this is also my first year on SANDAG, even though I've served on the council, City of Oceanside, this will be my 26th year, if you can believe that. And yes, I had heard a lot of things, and one of the things that I had committed to myself is I'm not going to be criticizing whoever represents any of our boards. It's whatever we can do to work together. So really last year was a year that I really got into very, very much involved with the SANDAG and appreciate very much being able to be at the executive committee as an alternate. That really kind of sped up getting up to speed for me. And I wasn't part of the whole negative stuff that happened before. But I have to say that it's been overwhelmingly positive for me to be for SANDAG to be headed by Mario and his wonderful crew, including Ariana and Antoinette. They've been wonderful in terms of being able to, they were reachable, being able to answer questions for me. And I know sometimes I can be very direct. I know I have that, I'm known for that. But I think that what we've done, especially this past year, in being more inclusive, and I want to say geographically inclusive, because in the end, we depend on all voters for the entire county. That will be part of looking towards the future, and what we depend on, we're going to be depending on having another tax. And we're starting now to build that trust, and being more inclusive geographically has made a tremendous difference. So I do appreciate that. It's Oceanside in the North County, especially along the 78. Just a lot of folks feel like we're not really taken into account when funds are spent. I definitely understand that the metropolitan area for San Diego, you're moving millions of people around, is a high priority. But just not to be left out completely or feel like we're being left out. This past year, I will tell you that our staff with our city manager and everybody else has felt more included in the process. So I appreciate that. And I also appreciate the ideas, the new kind of ideas about how to maximize dollars and not cutting up, but putting projects into phases so that funds are not left there for 10, 15 years unused, that we can take care of some of the maybe smaller projects that are also as critical. So that's been very, very positive. So thank you very much. And I really appreciate that we can have debates without, getting angry, right? I mean, some of us are more passionate than others. I know that I can do that. Is that being Latina, I guess, I don't know. But thank you, and I look forward to this year moving forward and having those, awesome debates. Thanks.
Great. Thank you all so much. These have been really, it's refreshing to hear comments like this. In years past, it was kind of a gripe session looking back on the year. So this has been nice to hear people appreciating each other and the work that we're doing together in moving this agency forward in a way that's more transparent and that we get some projects delivered. So we'll leave it at that. All right. Thank you all. Again, looking forward to the year together. So if no further discussion, this item requires no action. So we'll move on to the DBE program analysis. Teddy will be giving this presentation. Welcome to your first board meeting as general counsel. And I hope you've had a great first week at SANDAG so far. I know it's a learning curve, but we trust that you're up to speed already. Mario, please go ahead.
Sure. The team is going to be presenting. We brought some policies up front. I think it was in November. There was a robust discussion. You guys sent us back to the drawing board and to do some additional analysis. I feel bad for Teddy. He started and his first days, we told him, hey, you're doing a presentation on Friday. It needs to be posted. So you have 2 to 3 days to get it done. But there's several items, and he'll focus on DBE today. But I think the gist of it is, look, there's an evolving world. There's the rules the executive orders, but there's also questioning about it or not. So what we're wanting to do is we're tracking, we're being compliant with the law. When there's full funding agreements coming for grants, we're executing them. I'm the one who signs them, and Teddy certifies them, and we need to be in compliance with that. If not, you probably need to get us out of jail, because we need to follow those rules and guidelines. But you know, it's how do we keep this agency moving and be in compliance with state and federal regulations and manage the risk? And I think the team is going to focus today on DBE and what's going on and how we're dealing with it. And we'll welcome any questions when the presentation is done. But again, we're just looking, seeing what's happening. We're pausing on some policies, but at the same time, we're making sure that we're working with the funding agencies to be in compliance with their specific grant requirements when projects are coming in. Teddy, take it over.
Thank you very much, Mario. Before I get started on a personal note, and once again, I'm extremely honored to be in this position. I wanted to thank the warm welcome that the SANDAG staff had provided me. It's been a great first week here. It's been an exciting and a busy week, to say nonetheless. Chair Huebner, specifically, thank you so much. Vice Chair LaCava, thank you very much for the direct, warm discussion. And also, I had individual discussions with many of you already, and I look forward to many more future discussions as I continue to serve this role with you. So I've been tasked here to provide an update about the Disadvantaged Business Enterprise, or DBE as it's known. In November, the board had asked for some kind of some clarity on this thing, and I'll go through that right now. Basically, set this up into kind of four things, and loosely, it's basically there was a change that happened in October on the federal level that changed what was done before. I'll explain what the world was before for DBEs, what the change was, and what the current landscape is, and what the next steps are for SANDAG moving forward. So in that regard, and I'm not going to necessarily go item by item here. I'm going to just talk generally about this. So this is before the changes that happened in October. Essentially, the Department of Transportation created the DBE program. It's been a program that's been long-standing, and essentially, as it says here, it helps small businesses that have social economic disadvantaged individuals, including minorities and women, and it's specifically spelled out in the federal regulations, and it allows for participating in contract opportunities that provide DOT funding. SANDAG, as you all know, receive a large amount of funding through the federal government. Those are designated as federalized kind of contracts, and DBE goals applied in those situations. Under the federal regulations, there was, if you fell within the specific minority or gender groups, then you would be presumptively considered within a socially disadvantaged or economically disadvantaged. California has its certification program to determine DBEs. It's called the California Unified Certification Program, or CUCP, and it's comprised of various agencies. There's about 10 agencies that make up that. They certify it. Caltrans is one, LA Metro, my former place where I worked, and San Diego airports, they all kind of make up this thing, and they kind of formulate the program. They certified it. And CUCP considers other things besides race. It's, as you can see, personal net worth, size of company, control, to make sure you're kind of not a mega corporation, you're a smaller corporation. Before, just to let you know, it's kind of more of a check the box. Hey, you're part of this group, you're presumed to be a DBE, you meet those other criteria, great, you're certified, you're a DBE. So that was the world before. So fast forward, this is kind of the procurement guideline. For those that don't know, I can kind of briefly discuss this because not everybody's a procurement, nerd like I am, who lived in that world for a long time. So I'll explain it. So first of all, SANDAG, or most agencies, would determine, are you receiving federal funding? If yes, then DBE would apply. That agency or SANDAG would set up a particular goal that was determined. That goal would be put into the procurement documents. the prime contractors would list those DBE contractors, the percentage that they're going to have, and that they're at least hitting that goal or above. Contract would be awarded based on competitive criteria. SANDAG would monitor that compliance as the contract would go along, and at the end of the day, the contractor would have to hit that goal or explain why it couldn't hit it for other reasons. So that's essentially the procurement guideline. So we go forward, and I talked about the federal actions that happened. So on October 3rd, 2025, the Department of Transportation issued something called the interim final rule. It's called an IFR for it, and it fundamentally changed the DBE program. Before we get started on the changes, there's still a DBE program. It's been paused, but there's still a DBE program, but I'll explain what actually changed. So when I talked about before, there was a presumption of race or gender, they removed the presumption. There's no longer a presumption for that. There's not a category for that. And instead, they said there's a DBE program, but instead of having a presumption of race or sex, you have to have an individualized proof, or what they're going to require, a personal narrative of social and economic disadvantage. So at that point, it said, hey, there's no DBEs because you have to recertify as a DBE. So what happened is the federal government said, hey, we're not going to determine we're going to give you these parameters, but we're going to allow each individualized jurisdiction to create the new parameters or the new criteria, and you're going to create something and write up the personal narrative. So in addition to that, they said, okay, because there's no DBEs, if you, in your existing contracts, SANDAG or any other agency, you're going to have to pause that, your DBE program. You can't set future goals. You can't, if you have an existing contract that had 25% DBE, you have to stop that. You can't count it anymore. There's just a pause until this new program starts up again. Also, it says interim final rule. It's a little bit of a misnomer. It's not interim. It was a rule that's effective immediately. So on October 3rd, it took place immediately. Per regulations, the IFR provided a comment period. The federal government set a 30-day comment period. Various agencies submitted comments to this. It concluded on November 3rd, 2025. As with everything, that the rules of the game as it is are subject to change and clarification, and we're continuing to monitor those as it continues to go forward. So I talked about the new criteria briefly before, but this is kind of the new criteria that's being formulated by the CECP. They're drafting it right now. People have asked generally how long that process is going to take. We've had indications maybe 3 to 6 more months before the criteria gets rolled out. But you have to remember, just because they roll it out, then you're going to require the firms that want to be certified as DBEs, they have to fill out this stuff. So before I said it was check the box. So it's not a check the box scenario anymore. They have to kind of write a story or a narrative about why they are socially or economic disadvantaged. You can see some instances. They provided some guidelines, economic hardships, some systemic barriers, denied opportunities. Those have to have a clear connection as to impacts, your education, your employment, your business. As I said before, race and sex can't be considered, and there's some other criteria that still remain as requirements. So compliance. So what did SANDAG do in response to when the IFR came? SANDAG, as always, with everything, have to remain compliant with all laws, state and federal. So that changed. They said, hey, all these contracts remain in place, suspended the DBE compliance until and enforcement until the reevaluation period starts again. Now, a lot of people have asked, hey, well, what happens to these subcontractors? Subcontractors are still protected. There's something called the subcontractor listing law. You can't arbitrarily just replace subcontractors. Subcontractors remain in place. They, unless there's a specified list of why a contractor or subcontractor can be replaced. And not only that, they have to provide that, and they have to seek the agency or SANDAG's approval to replace that subcontractor. So it's not, the Wild West. You can't just get rid of subcontractors. If you're DBE certified by you continued, as I said earlier. For new procurements, since the IFR, there's no DBE goal that's set because there's no DBEs. that exists right now. There's no DB program requirements. The CECP is still formulating those certification process. And, we put language saying that the DB sessions and referencing the IFR saying, hey, because of the IFR, we're not setting goals. So next steps. So this is kind of what's going on. As I stated earlier, SANDAG and my team and I are going to continue to monitor all this DB guidance and regulations and provide updates to the board as necessary. And I know that there was some discussion during the November board meeting about policy changes. As Mario referenced, there's a lot of things that are going on, and changes to policies and everything. Because this is day 4 here, I want to do a more wholesome review of all the policies as they are, the changes that happen, and come back down the road to recommending those policy changes. There's a lot going on. As I stated earlier, even with the IFR stuff, it's not necessarily settled. They provided guidance. The CUCP is still doing the evaluation criteria. So until some of that stuff kind of becomes a little bit more clear, we're not, moving forward and doing those changes. I know some people have talked about, hey, we have policies that may be adverse or contrary to it. As I've stated to some of you individually, laws change, things change. It's like in a contract, and the lawyers that are out there in the world, I'm looking at the left side of my room over here and others, we have, in terms of a contract, if I entered a contract with an individual, a lot of times there's something called a severability provision in there. Say, hey, if something's not legal, unless it fundamentally doesn't change the contract, you just kind of take it out. Right now, for the policies that don't apply, we're considering putting something that says under review and noting why those things are under review. There's a caveat there that that SANDAG intends to, staff will come back to the board about one or a couple other changes that are unrelated, board policy changes that are unrelated to DBE, but it was following a triennial review about the ADA compliance and complaint periods that I think fundamentally do need to be changed per the FTA, per the recommendation. So that kind of concludes my presentation. I'm more than happy to take questions.
Before we take questions, we're going to go to public comment.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Then we'll go to public comment, Michael.
Sure. If you're online, please raise your hand now. In person, we have Truth followed by Caesar.
DBE or DIE? Because as the presentation admits, the past disadvantage business regulations provided that women in certain racial and ethnic groups were presumed disadvantaged. Presumed means SANDAG was not evidence-based and 100% racist until this current federal government changed policies. DOT's rule requires proof that a business is disadvantaged. How dare they require transparency and quell the potential for fraud? SANDAG should never again implement such racist policies that presume the worst about people like myself. At iTalk, we already had to suffer through having our time wasted with highly inappropriate questions from Nora 2.0, aka Manuela. She fails to realize that equity is so 2020. But why is there still an obsession with a fake made-up idea that no regular person remotely liked? Trump agenda. Equity is the same as TDS. It is a mental illness. And according to the presentation, there's nothing to freak out about. But I do want to recognize that neither Allison nor Lauren came with such delusions. They brought real, tangible concerns. I agree that small business does need to be recognized, and I add to that local and veteran-owned businesses not getting any of the major contracts with SANDAG. I also have a problem with saying that all the past fraud is just, it's fine, typical Trump. That being said, small businesses having the opportunity to secure grants is exactly why staff removed the unlawful discriminative language so that SANDAG programs would be compliant and qualified to secure grants. Square one has not changed. This is really about the union-owned progressive puppets in the room trying to protect their moneymakers who've secured sole source contracts with SANDAG despite being completely unqualified. Only paid puppets would be fighting to push faux California values that violate federal anti-discrimination laws. $500 million is nothing to play political games with. Shame on anyone who dares to waste our time on talking about such a selfish nuclear endeavor. Equity is dead and change is hard. Get over it. Quit trying to make political campaign statements and start finishing projects. That is the job of SANDAG. Thank you.
Next is Cesar Javier. The item is the Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program Analysis.
this is one of the pillars of our Constitution. We call justice, a system that is fair to everyone, particularly the others. We call the weak, the less, the poor. The guidelines is very, very clear. I will fund you, give you money, if you could prove or comply with my mandate. Basically, DEI, a repetitive day-to-day prayer considering attending to diversity, equity, and inclusion. My question is the city of San Diego one of the participants in this association complying with this? We have reason to believe that no. In fact, the city attorney wrote a letter, a strong letter, to Uncle Sam, hey, release, don't pause on our funding. City operates as independent political unit. Number 8, this is an example, and I'm sticking to the item. Councilor Lacaba. It's a Monday, and yet we do not care. We have the funding from the federal, Uncle Sam, and yet you neglect the
Thank you. Your
Tijuana
time has
River
expired.
pollution sewage.
We have 4 online public comments. The first is Paul DeBold, followed by Andrea Ebbing. The item is the Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program Analysis.
Hey, I'm first this time. In the last item, you mentioned procedures. You need less. The number of different categories in them sounds like a type of favoritism or corruption. Now, at its November 21st meeting, the Board of Directors voted to continue action on 3 proposed amendments to the board policies based on the Disadvantaged Business Enterprise DBE program, and directed staff to return to the board with an analysis of changes that are mandatory by law or discretionary, including justification, and provide an analysis of alternative strategies. The basics are pretty much what we know, that instead of presupposing that certain groups, minorities, women, and so on, are disadvantaged, the DBE law now requires proof of their disadvantaged status. This is a good way of preventing abuse of the system by, for instance, minorities who are actually not disadvantaged. There are too many people getting funded with our tax money without proof that they deserve it. Check the box is not simply yes or no. It is actually interpreting which box needs to be checked. And basically it's as subjective as an essay, deciding which box fits or which box you can get away with. So now anyone currently certified as a DBE needs to be reevaluated under the new rules, and the DBE program is paused during the reevaluation.
Thank you. Your time has expired. Next is Andrea Ebbing, followed by the original draw.
Hi, this is Andrea Ebbing, and I'm just wondering why we would award any money at all to anyone in a disadvantaged position, because why would we do that when we can just give money to ultra wealthy people who are willing to do the dirt for the elected officials that are involved with them? Once they get the contract, they've then planted these people in the ground. They need dirty people who love money. But if they're not, they can pretend to be disadvantaged, or they can pretend to be a minority. So Teddy Lowe, I appreciate your comments on being passionate about procurement, and I would highly encourage an audit of the existing contracts and the guidelines and how they were issued. I would also encourage an audit of county contracts and how they're issued, and why, after years of reports of opioid distribution, we're still awarding $5 million to a dope dealing ring pretending to be a rehab facility, causing a homeless crisis by importing addicts from all over the country. I can't help but wonder if Andrea Cardenas used her Cardenas last name to obtain the funds that she was found to be in felony fraud violation of with her brother Jesus. And while Summer Stephan, our district attorney, was prosecuting her and, supposed to be doing the job of serving and protecting the community, I'm wondering why she paid TMC Direct $1,081,000 plus grassroots marketing hundreds of thousands of dollars while prosecuting them. Is it because they're high-level money laundering people? Jesus and Andrea Cardenas, the planted Chula Vista City Council rubber stamper that they put in place knowing she was a fraud? Maybe because she has the last name Cardenas, they assumed she was disadvantaged and they gave her a bunch of money. Is that what happened? I don't know, but what I do know is that our DA is a RICO mob boss and it needs to be stopped because it's affecting everyone. Thank you.
Next, the original draw, followed by Consuelo.
Yeah, it's interesting to see the fraud, waste, and abuse that comes out when some kind of, change comes down the pike, and exposing the fact that you would do a check your box and you're certified type of a qualification for funding. The fraud is off the charts. It's like you don't even, when all of this DEI stuff came in, you guys were doing anything and everything to implement stuff. People were being hired not because of their qualifications, but because of their race or their sex or something that you would claim would make them disadvantaged. And this shows why this stuff needs to happen, because you guys have proven to us that, this is racketeering across the board, because you're not doing things the way that they should be done until something else comes into place to force you to capitulate. And it's funny because you guys are money horse, so you have to do all of that because it's going to cut the funding that's coming for other projects. And you guys spend a lot of time, bringing in things like the social equity working group. So is that something that's going to go away? Because it took that group, months to even determine what social equity was, and their definition was different depending on whether or not you were an employee or just a citizen. So it is, good that this kind of stuff happens, but it just shows that you're doing that more of that check your box and your certified stuff across the board. This isn't the only thing that happens when, but it's ridiculous because you guys will do anything when it comes to money. And so it makes you wonder, like, if money shifted from, protecting the environment that is being destroyed by geoengineering and was used to, go and stop geoengineering, you'd probably jump to that so that you could racketeer with that money. But instead, it's like you just want to, and we don't even have anything to show for like all the money that you guys take from the people. And it's because of things like this, because you're giving it to people that don't need it.
Our last public comment is Consuelo. Go ahead, Consuelo.
I'm sorry, my device is muted. Okay, so amen to all the 1111, all the previous speakers, and double amen to Andrea Ebbing. Oh God, I love what you had to say. Okay, so let's see. For many small businesses, certification programs like DBE aren't abstract policy tools. They are directly tied to stability, planning, and survival. When program rules change, the way those changes are implemented can either protect small businesses or place them in a prolonged state of uncertainty. Shifting towards demonstrated disadvantage rather than assumed categories can strengthen the integrity of the program. But during transitions like this, clarity and continuity are critical. Small businesses operate on tight margins and long timelines and extended pauses or delays can result in lost opportunities that cannot easily be recovered. I encourage SANDAG to prioritize interim guidance. No, don't. No, actually, I don't. I don't advise that. What am I saying? Waiting passively. No. Okay. Let me get to the end of this speech. The success of this update should be measured not just by legal compliance, but by whether genuinely disadvantaged small businesses can continue operating, competing, and contributing during the transition. Yeah, that's all that was written. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I have a few people on the board and I'm assuming those are comments. Is there anybody who has just a technical question for Teddy or staff? Okay, we'll start with your question, Mayor Duncan.
Thank you. And then
Just question and then you'll save your comments for later, okay?
Perfect.
Okay.
That's awesome. So my question specifically is for you, Teddy, and I appreciate your report and your summary, and I'm very familiar with this area of law, and as well for Mario. I just want to get assurances from both of you to the board that, and I believe this is what is actually true, but I would like to hear that it is, that SANDAG is not going to not do something or refrain from changing a policy or whatever it needs to do in such a way that it would jeopardize any federal funding that we otherwise could obtain now in regard to because of this DBE, discussion that took place at a prior meeting or otherwise. So we are going to do what we have to do. And if there's policies that do not need to be changed now, that's fine. But if there's something that's going to jeopardize funding that needs to come to the board specifically, it's 30% of our funding. And as we all know, we know what our job is here primarily. So could I hear from you, please?
That is correct. That's the statement I made at the opening. We are still, whenever full funding agreements are coming in place, we are reviewing them, we're negotiating them with the federal agencies, and we're complying with them and executing them. One item that may come to the board, one of the policies was on the FTA, Federal Transit Authority Triennial Audit. There was a requirement or a request by FTA that to give more time for complaint process, more time. And that's even so it's not DBE or DEI, we may come with that policy because we want to be in compliance with the triennial audit. So that's I hope that's fulfills the question. I know, Teddy, if you want to add anything.
Turned off on me. Absolutely. Even if there's any policies that are there, let's say hypothetically that are contrary, just because the policies are there, I'm going to do a wholesome review. If necessary, like I said, we'll say it's under review, but Mario and I discussed where, the agency is not going to do anything that's going to be contrary to law. If it says you can't do it anymore, regardless of what we put down there, SANDAG's not going to be moving forward on obviously anything contrary to that, and not only being legally compliant, but it's in other, as you first said, it's not going to jeopardize funding if you're compliant with the law. So yes, we will be doing that. We will not be doing anything that's going to jeopardize federal funding.
Thank you.
Anybody with just a question, raise your hand. Oh, Councilmember Shin.
Yes, this is just a question in regards to disparity. So the state of California, just to confirm, does not use gender as a form of demonstrating like a disability or a hardship.
Yeah, so there's a distinction here that I probably should clarify. So this is federal contracts. Under the old scenario, you can consider race and gender. If it's a state-funded solely contract, they weren't allowed to do that already because under Prop 209, as some of you remember way back in the 90s, under state and since that time period, for state solely funded projects, they couldn't consider race or gender. That's why your UCs can't consider, they're not part of that Harvard case because you can consider race or gender already. So it's kind of a separate line that's there. And then federal funding before the IFR change, you could consider race or gender as a presumption, a disadvantage.
To add to not to the specific question, but I think to put it in perspective, there are very, very few, if any, and my contracts team can correct me on this, contracts of any type that we do not mix local, state, and federal funds. We leverage, we ask for state funds and we put in the match as local funds, but then for the next phase, we put in the match of the state and the local funds for the federal funds. So we build up that strategy. So it's very few, if any, projects that are solely funded with either local 100%, state 100%, or federal 100%. We really commingle the funds substantially. So we navigate the requirements from the state and the federal government.
And then
Mayor, go
just
ahead.
to follow up on that, are we just, because we're not measuring that data anymore, are we measuring it in one way or another?
SANDAG is not allowed to continue to require contractors to provide their percentages anymore, suspended at this point.
Do you know if we as an entity still rely on any research that shows disparity in contracts, meaning that are we just going to I think a lot of what's coming out here right now is just the fact that we're like saying we're not going to look at the data. So then we're just going to say that this isn't a case anymore. I just am wondering, are we still going to be reviewing the fact that there could be disparities with these groups?
I'm going to turn this over to Elaine. There's disparity studies that are done. I believe SANDAG just did one, but I'll turn it to Elaine on that discussion.
Yes, we did complete a disparity study, and that disparity study did show that there is disparate in terms of how we award contracts. And so it did enforce that the race and gender groups that are within the DBE program do experience disparity. But at this time, because of the new IFR, we are no longer allowed to include any type of analysis about that disparity. So we won't be referencing that disparity study, but it has been done and it was just recently completed.
Are you
council member?
Yes.
One point of clarification is there's still a DBE program in existence. Now that there's going to be companies who are going to get, especially we rely on Caltrans, there's already a process like Teddy mentioned on setting up the recertification. My guess, and Elaine will correct me again, it's, Caltrans is preparing how they're going to implement that package. They're going to send it to the federal government to see if it's compliance. Once that's been approved, then the state will let us know that they're ready to start certifying. Different businesses are going to go and put in their requests based on what Teddy explained of the criteria. And then there is going to be a new list of disadvantaged businesses, and we will begin applying that process again based on what we're provided as guidance, both by the state and the federal government. So there's going to be a point right now that, yeah, we're in a pause, but that doesn't mean this is going to stop, right? And there's going to be a moment in time where this gets reinitiated. Do I have a specific date? No. Do we have a guess date? Maybe the fall of this year, we will start having recertifications come through, and then all the different government agencies and cities and everybody are going to move around that, right? So there's going to be a bar that that measurement is going to be happening. And again, we will be allowed to do all those different analysis that we have to do to figure out how we are more equitable in providing the work.
Yeah, it's just like a layered cake, but I was just wondering, do we end up for us as a county describe why we do certain things the way we do? as opposed to state and federal. And so the questions are, do we as a county believe that we have research proving that there's disparities amongst, the things that we can't measure federally, but are we still going to continue to do the research to show and demonstrate it is or is not the case?
I think the spirit of this presentation is, let's wait and let this dust settle and let's figure out what's in the horizon. And then we can figure out how we move and implement and work as a group. And it's not just a SANDAG issue. This applies to any governmental agency. But we need to let things pan out so we know what the rules of the game are.
Great. Yield.
Mayor Jones, you had a question only at this point?
Yeah, just a clarification. So the way that I'm hearing this is that we are planning on fully complying, because otherwise, if we don't comply with federal and state law, we could lose funding, which then would put everything that we're currently doing in jeopardy. So I just want to make sure there is nothing that we need from the board of directors, because Mario and Teddy, you have both agreed that we are going to be following federal and state law. We're going to let the dust settle, as you had mentioned, but then we're going to reassess to make sure we don't get ourselves in trouble because our policies are not matching what we're actually doing. Is that correct?
From my review, and granted it's a 4-day review, that since the IFR was issued, SANDAG has been compliant with all federal and state laws regarding this issue and others, and will remain compliant. If there's anything we need to tighten up regarding the board policies, like I said, we will consider that under review. But right now, based on my understanding, we've remained compliant, have been compliant, and will be compliant moving forward based on the IFR that was handed down and any other laws or regulations that notwithstanding the IFR.
Great. Thanks for that clarification.
Vice Chair LaCava, you have a question.
Thank you, Teddy, for the presentation. Thank you in advance. Everybody is going to work on this and try to dissect it and come back to us with revised policies. So wanted to make sure that I understood, or that anybody listening understands, that the current contracts are not at risk.
No, they're not at risk.
And two, if we're putting a pause on DBE, does that mean we're putting a pause on any new procurements?
Not a pause on the new procurements, but in the new procurements, there's no goal setting. So there's no, before you would say, hey, there's a 20, I'm making this up. Each contract's a little bit different, but hypothetically, hey, there's a 25% DBE goal. And the contractor would have to provide, here's my list, and that satisfies the 25%. They'd have to comply with that at the end and say, hey, look, I got 26%, I'm good. You said you're good. We can't put a goal on the contracts that were post October 3rd. There is no goal.
Okay, but so we've made a policy decision that we're not going to pause any new procurement.
Yeah, a decision. I don't even know if it's necessarily a policy decision. It was just a decision that was made. There's no need to pause any procurements. You just don't put a goal on there.
Okay.
As compliant with the regulations.
If somebody made the decision, it was me. We need to keep moving this agency forward. And if we were to pause and for a year, imagine the increase of cost of billions of dollars of pausing.
And I don't disagree with that. I think just in terms of the industry and those smaller firms that or subcontractors that have come to rely on this process, now they have to think differently. So I appreciate that. And then I just also wanted to give you an opportunity to kind of repeat and make sure that we heard, or that, again, whoever's listening, there now will have to be not a checkbox, but actually a storytelling, and those smaller disadvantaged companies will have to have new resources to figure out how to tell their story in order to qualify with the new DBE designation. Is that correct?
Yes, it's something called the personal narrative. And actually in my prior life, I helped provide some of the guidance for that. We put suggestions on there, but they're still formulating exactly what it looks like. So everybody's wondering exactly the form, but it's more of a narrative as opposed to, like I said, you kind of check the box. So they're flushing that out, and hopefully we'll see it soon. And it's going to be admittedly probably a little bit more work for these firms, as opposed to before you just had to show it. Now you have to write why. So, but you're correct. It's called the personal narrative.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And that brings me to my question, which is, so we're waiting for the criteria that will inform this narrative, like that, how it'll kind of give you like cues of what you have to include in there to be considered. Is that correct?
Elaine said she can talk about it in greater detail.
Well, I want to know who reviews it. Once they get the personal narrative, who
So
reviews it?
the certifying agency, there's a couple certifying, the CUCP is made, there's certain if you go onto the website and said, hey, I'm this firm, you kind of type in what zip code you're on, it'll direct you who the certifying agency is for your particular area.
And Mario just said that for here, it'll be Caltrans. They'll be the ones
Caltrans
who are
could be
going-
one, it could be another agency, but there's also, but once you're certified for one, you're certified for us all.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Depends where it lands.
But it
Okay.
kind of it directs you kind of to who the local certifying agency is, or the closest one.
Okay, before I go to Elaine, anybody who asked a question and wants to have further comments, please press your speaker button again. Elaine, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, so the personal narrative that the CUCP is working on, there are 4 factors that they're looking at in terms of the 6,000 DBEs in the state of California that need to get recertified. They need to look at what kind of hardships did they experience in terms of education, employment, operating their business, and access to capital. And small businesses may not know how to do this. So we're hoping that the CUCP comes up with some training information to help these DBEs because they do need to get recertified.
Okay, very good. All right. Yes, Mayor Minto? Yeah, question. Go ahead, Mayor Minto.
Along that line, so is it CPUC or the certifying agency that creates the thresholds? Do you understand what I mean by that? There's got to be a minimum, threshold that you have to comply with in order to be a disadvantaged business. Because I mean, somebody has to set that criteria.
Yeah, and so that is what like Teddy said, there's 10 members in the California Unified Certification Program. All of those members are now working on what is the criteria going to be. This is what has to occur for the 6,000 DBEs to get recertified. And they are the ones that will dictate what that criteria will be.
Is it just, are they appointed people? Who are they with?
They're all public agencies. Caltrans is the lead. LA Metro is a huge certifying agency. San Diego Airport certifies. There's several up in BART. There's 10 agencies that do the certification. And it's mostly about if your agency can take on that type of work. We at SANDAG would not be a certifying agency. We go to Caltrans or LA Metro to help us with our certifications.
But Mayor, they're going to do basically their proposal. The federal government's probably going to review it, and they're going to say, yeah, this is what we're thinking is the bar for based on the criterias, the bar for scoring or awarding the designation of being a DBE. So then those agencies, once they have that approved process, can start the actual certification process of businesses applying through them. They have the approved criteria, those agencies, and then they'll certify. I'm going to speculate. I think that the DBE world is going to increase, and it may be bigger than 6,000 in the state in the future, because there's going to be other opportunities, one for the existing groups to tell their story, but also for other groups to also tell potentially their story. Again, this is my assessment of what I think it could happen, but it's a process, and that's why we're just tracking it and waiting for the agencies to get the certifying agencies getting those criteria approved, and then they just can start certifying businesses, and we can start re-implementing the DBE program.
Yeah, I think it's just interesting because some of those agencies that are part of the certifying, I don't know if I can trust them.
I'm at Minto. All right. We're going to go to Supervisor Aguirre.
Thank you. I just want to start my comments with, I want to acknowledge what Councilmember Shin was alluding to. And I think that's an important conversation we need to have further down the line once all of this dust settles, whether this agency continues to collect that important information, even if it's in an optional way or not, right? Regardless of what the regulations and mandates are. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. I also want to acknowledge that these changes are happening very fast for so many agencies in our cities and our counties. So, and especially with very little warning and very little clarity. So I just want to acknowledge that. I also want to say that at our November 21st meeting, this board was presented with a large number of policy changes all at once, many of them striking at the heart of equity, discrimination protections, and public participation. That moment was alarming, not because compliance is optional, but because it was unclear how much of what we were being asked to change was legally required versus how much reflected a broader shift away from equity itself. I suspect that many of my colleagues around this room have experienced the same whiplash, as I said, in your own jurisdictions and on other boards and commissions, policies changing overnight, guidance reversing course, and values we have spent decades building suddenly treated as liabilities rather than strengths. I want to acknowledge and thank SANDAG staff, especially to our new general counsel, your 4th day. Thank you for hitting the floor running and taking a strong look at this. And I know there's going to be a lot more work to be done moving forward. Obviously, these are not technical edits. These are changes with real consequence for who gets access to opportunity and who is treated equitably. There is no dispute that the federal government has changed its interpretation of the DBE program. Race and gender conscious presumptions are no longer permitted under current federal direction. And because SANDAG relies on federal transportation funding, we are compelled to comply. That is the legal reality that we are navigating. But we should also be equally honest about what this represents. This is a step backward for equity. It is the loss of an important tool that helped counteract generations of exclusion in public contracting and infrastructure investment. And it sends a chilling message to the small businesses and communities who have finally begun to see themselves reflected in these programs. Compliance with federal minimums does not mean we stop believing in equity. Equity is one of the 4 pillars of the 2025 Regional Transportation Plan that we all approved not even a few weeks ago. And it must remain a guiding value even when federal policy is moving in the opposite direction. That is why it's critical that we don't rush to change policy while the ground is still shifting beneath us. Allowing time for California regulatory authorities, including the California Unified Certification Program, to finalize guidance is not hesitation, it is responsible stewardship. This careful phased approach protects us in 2 essential ways. It preserves critical federal funding in the near term so projects can move forward, and it gives this board the space to defend our values and minimize harm as laws and interpretations continue to change, sometimes even in direct conflict with each other. I appreciate the care being taken to bring the board along thoughtfully and transparently. And we owe it to the public, to the communities most impacted by transportation decisions, and to the small businesses that depend on fair access to opportunity to keep equity front and center. Equity is not dead, even when it becomes politically inconvenient. Securing federal funding matters, but so does who benefits from it. Our responsibility is to hold both truths at the same time. That concludes my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor. Mayor Duncan.
Thank you. I understand we're going to comply, so I appreciate that, because my goal is for us to do our job that we have taken on here as board members of SANDAG to fund infrastructure to move people and to do our best for the whole county. So I want to ensure that happens. I do think there's a little bit of risk if we have policies that are in conflict, and potentially, I know there was a brief mention of, maybe some comment or asterisks or something saying we are going to comply with federal law, or to the extent these policies don't comply with federal law, we're still going to comply with federal law. And that really is obviously the truth. And it doesn't, some of the other things that were just said, none of that is accurate in regard to us doing any different action. Whether we change the policy or not, we're complying it. So we're complying with the law. So that's just, factually what happens. And I agree with what our CEO said, which is, I think there will be more disadvantaged businesses certified, because when you exclude certain groups of people based off of race and off of their sex, they are not able to apply. So if everybody is equitably allowed to apply and prove that they are a disadvantaged business, there are likely to be many more applicants. The only logical issue with that would be that if there are ones that are not disadvantaged and cannot prove it, they'll be removed from the program, as I believe they rightfully should, because again, I do not believe we should make our decisions based on race or sex. And, you know, and some of the most famous speeches we've ever heard are in one of the most famous speeches we've ever heard. The concept from that speech is, I have a dream that my 4 children will be based on the content of their character, not on the color of their skin, and that all men and women are created equal. And I agree with those concepts and think everyone should be treated equally. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Cazares.
Thank you. Thank you to everyone who asked questions and got those answers for us. I feel a lot more comfortable with the way that we're moving forward on these decisions and that we're not rushing them. I'm very impressed already by our general counsel and, of course, the entire team, because as I shared in November, I'm not interested in preemptively making sweeping policy changes, even if they might seem small at the time. I'm also very relieved to hear that the CUCP is actually already in many ways in compliance with this because of state law. I wasn't aware of that until you shared that, so thank you very much. I think that we're making the right decision by not making rushed decisions right now. And of course, it is absolutely our responsibility to steward all of the funding that we receive and ensure that we're able to continue receiving it so that we can have more groundbreakings, more ribbon cuttings, and ensure that the work that we're doing here continues. But I feel a lot of relief, and I just wanted to thank you all for the work that you have been doing and will continue to do as we move forward. And when we do have to make policy changes, we will do that because it's the responsible thing to do, and that's why we're on this board. But I wanted to say thank you because I have a lot of relief in the way that we're moving forward. So thank you to everyone.
Thank you. Councilmember Shin.
Yeah, thank you. I understand the situation, and I did bring up what I brought up just to kind of help clarify. It's a little bit of pushback to you, Mayor Duncan. I apologize right now if it comes off that way. It's an and, it's not an or, in my opinion. So I think what's taking place right now is what's kind of causes frustration is that we're saying we are not taking certain aspects of how we are with our collective groups, meaning race or gender, as a factor. And so if I were to tell you that joining the Marine Corps and trying to promote was a lot more difficult because of the jarjacking that you actually do here when you're in, that there's something that we say and we see all the things that we're saying about equality, and then you see what it's like when your boots on the ground, and it's far different. And it's far different when you're in the fire service as a minority. And it's far different when you're seeing it in a different lens in it, and I can guarantee you it. So I just think it's an and. I think there's times when they call it social economic for a reason. There's economic reasons, and they can add more players into the game that have disparity, but there's a social side to it too. And so I've seen it. I've seen it in the fire service. I've seen it with our homeless, with our addictions, with everything I've seen. And I just think some people need a little bit more of a lift up than others, and it just needs to be data proven. So that's why I brought it up. We have to be able to provide data to just show, is there disparity? If there's not, then great. We're all hoping for that, but it didn't disappear in my personal opinion. And so that's why I just say it in that regards. I yield back.
Thank you, Mayor Sanchez.
Thank you. I appreciate the presentation. Great job. And I want to say that at 69, this year I turned 70, I lived the life of a Latina, first generation, growing up in the barrio. And, my mom having 1 year education, my dad 7. They lived through as kids, they went through the Depression. and new poverty. I do believe, first of all, I do believe that we're going to be picking up a lot more in terms of folks who are impoverished because of the economy. There is, in fact, more poverty now than there was just recently. And I went to college and I went to law school. And by the time I got to law school, Bakke had already been decided by the U.S. Supreme Court in '78. And so back then, if you recall, they got rid of quotas, which very much sounds like goals, right? It actually went from quotas to goals, right? But throughout the entire time, it was about economic hardship, improving that. And so I, in my capacity as wanting to bring change, I would volunteer and work for the admissions office and help out with reading the applications, which included that narrative that we're talking about, and, making recommendations as to who would qualify under these criteria. So I want to say we've been doing this for decades. And, that part of that was in Providence, Rhode Island. Part of it was in San Francisco. But truly, there is still a lot that hasn't changed. I'm an optimist. And so I'm still working in that space of trying to get out of these kind of generational poverty cycles. And so I think that we here understand that. So I feel very comfortable that we're, walking hand in hand in moving forward and in knowing that what we're trying to do is bring up everybody in terms of the economic realities here and opportunities. So I came from a very hardworking traditional family whose both parents started working in the fields, and then moving to the cities in a factory. My dad found a job at Camp Pendleton, unloading the trucks for the mess hall. So, and he did that for 35 years. So I just want to say that poverty is still here with us, and probably in larger numbers. I am still optimistic through all these years, because of the people who understand that this is the only way we're going to all be able to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Chavez.
I'm going to try to do it without coughing. I'm still recovering from pneumonia. So
Oh.
I just want to thank staff. This is it can be a controversial topic, and you have navigated beautifully with this board, and it's the leadership, it's the chair, and it's all of us working together. I respect all the opinions that have been said across the table with my neighbors, and I just think that there's so much middle ground. But we also have to highlight that we see it, we're representing a community, we're representing a region, and we have a big responsibility with that, to voice everyone's concerns and to make sure that we serve the region as effective but as equitable as possible. And if history serves us right, at least here at the SANDAG board, we still have a lot of questions and contracts that were improperly reviewed and documented. And, extra steps is always necessary. And if those extra steps are regarding also looking in new opportunities for new good businesses and see how we can distribute it equitably, I'm always going to be in favor for it, because I owe that to the community. I owe that to my background, to my DNA, but also to the people I represent. I am no one. I'm just the voice of the people that elected me. And that's who we are all talking for, right? So thank you again. This is a difficult topic. I think we're going in the right direction. I'm excited to see how we can do more. We can always do more, and we can always do better. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all very much. You know, I think that this is all about offering opportunity and offering opportunity to individuals and to businesses. And if the pool expands, to me, that's great. I've never been opposed to giving a little bit of a helping hand to those who might not have had opportunities in the past or awareness of opportunities in the past. And one way I think that we can continue to do that is once these trainings are hopefully offered to help with the personal narrative and stories, is that SANDAG participate in those trainings and offer them to the bench that we have now in our DBE programs. So with that, there's nobody else on the board. This was just a discussion item. Thank you very much for all of that. And we're going to now move into closed session. So I'm going to ask anyone who does not need to be here for this item to please exit the room, and we'll reconvene to share any reportable action.
Chair, with public comment for this item.
Oh my gosh, excuse me, we have to do public comments on closed session. Please remain, sorry. Michael, may we have public comments on closed session?
The first in-person public comment is Truth, followed by Andrea Ebbing online.
Hello, people running away from the meeting. I remembered that there was public comment. The chair failed to remember, had to be reminded. I should sue you for that. SANDAG, I mean, sorry. Why would SANDAG be facing significant exposure to litigation yet again, other than what just happened? Did Lauren Warham have a counter to a SANDAG appeal? Did you guys fail to offer her 100 SANDAG sandwiches to make up for what she's been through? Did I see it? For all the time SANDAG's meetings went too long and I almost passed out from starvation. Luckily, I got friends sometimes. I can no longer say anything about the public records not being answered, though they are. Great job on that. But however, I'm considering suing because you guys are just la 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 racism. Wah. Jeez, it's so annoying how stereotype people. But the reason I bring it up, how it's related, is because I could sue. You talk about disadvantage. Well, then I must be the most disadvantaged person in the room. Is probably true, statistically speaking. But does that mean that I'm owed all the contracts now? Sounds like it. Are certain board members, like some of them, like down there, they gonna sue because I made them cry so many times? Is yet another person gonna sue SANDAG for all the cracked streets, sinkholes, potholes, flooding in the city of San Diego? Sometimes they blame SANDAG. Is SANDAG in support of the county's upcoming property transfer, income taxes, payroll taxes? So everybody must sue everyone who would dare to ally with destructive policies that would increase the cost of housing and living. And I will end, especially after that conversation, I'm going to end on a deep thought. Because some people would use the word privileged, right? You like that, has a guilt trip feeling, like you should feel bad for having things. Well, here's how I put it. An alternative translation to the twisted word privilege is the word blessed. Thank you.
Next is Andrea Ebbing online, followed by the original draw.
Hi, this is Andrea Ebbing, and I highly encourage anybody that's listening to Google the comments I'm about to make in depth, look at the names and content. I also am not getting this off my chest. I'm sharing with expectation of action amongst the board and any feds or media that's listening. So I'm wondering if potentially the lawsuit has to do with John Duncan donating gift cards to Coronado police officer Amy Beebe, redeemable for cash, to his office by using my ex's literally prostitute wife to drop them off as a thanks for community giving thanks situation. So Coronado police officer Amy Beebe receives a basket full of Visa gift cards redeemable for cash to Apex Recovery, her lash lounge, which is called Lashes by Lizzie, because maybe that's what you do after you're a prostitute and then you don't have any career training. And then also to John Duncan's office before he became mayor. So maybe it has to do with that. Or maybe it has to do with the fact that Nathan Fletcher is still funneling hundreds of thousands of dollars through his campaigns, but is no longer an employee or a candidate. Maybe it has to do with the fact that Summer Stephan has $2 million of identical campaign transactions to Nathan Fletcher, and there's $1.5 million 5 of Jim Desmond's money, which is also identical. These are their 460 forms, which can be found on sdvote.com. Campaign finance tools, look up their names, all 3 of those names. They share one thing in common, or 2 things really. A treasurer named Nancy Haley, who is also Todd Gloria's treasurer, or we'll call her a fixer, 25 years of FPPC violations, as well as C. April Bowling, 30 years of FPPC violations. Bob Filner, anybody that's ever been outed in San Diego, and that's how Jim Desmond smoked himself out, because when I started speaking about this, he started sweating and spinning in circles and trying to stop me, but he couldn't. Thank you.
Next is the original draw, followed by Consuelo.
See how quickly you try and, disenfranchise the people. I mean, you guys are, constantly engaged in litigation, and this one being anticipated, it's like it could potentially be anything because of all of the fraud, waste, and abuse as seen with these DBEs that you guys have been checking the box and, making sure that they just go ahead and get it. You shouldn't have a problem with accountability and making sure that there's transparency. And if you have every reason to prove or ability to prove that you are disadvantaged, then it shouldn't be a problem. It's a problem when people that can't prove it and then you engage in the fraud by giving the money to them. So, the things you guys do across the board are just wasteful and, just furthering, all of the disadvantage in the communities that happens. Like you create those scenarios for people because of the way that you guys engage in your business, because this is a business and it's not really about, making the roads better, providing what needs to be provided, just like in your cities. It's about revenue, bringing in money and making sure that you're going to pay the people to do whatever it is. And just on the surface, you have to make it look like you're doing what the people, you tell the people that you're doing, but in reality, you're not. And it's all a bunch of racketeering. And that's why it's like you get upset when your money gets messed with, but you don't seem to get upset when things like, I don't know, the homeless are sleeping just right where outside the door where you guys are right now at night. And then they get moved as soon as, downtown partnership, like I was saying, comes in and has to get them out of there because it's an eyesore. Or the fact that children get trafficked in our communities, and that you guys are complicit in that because you refuse to even acknowledge that it happens, because you know what, the funding would be cut if you did. So it's just interesting to see how much you guys will jump through hoops when it comes to money, but when it comes to things like an emergency or anything like that, you guys work at a snail's pace, because as long as that emergency exists, the funding keeps coming in.
Next is Consuelo, followed by our last public comment by Paul the Bold.
Okay, shout out to all of the concerned citizens. You are on fire. Okay, so first off, I'd like to say, as somebody who was actually raised in the barrio, Latino isn't an ancestral identity. It's a colonial label rooted in European language, not indigenous lineage. So yeah, pride deserves truth and not erasure. So yeah, anybody who calls themselves Latino, little reminder there. Okay, back to what I was going to say about this item.
This is closed session. Is it that?
Yep, I'm on closed session. Yep, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, I'm back to. I just had to make that disclaimer about the Latinos that are so proud to call themselves Latino when they're actually shouting out to colonization. Okay, so back to my SANDAG comment. This is closed session, right?
Yes.
Okay, got it. Thank you. Okay, so while the Brown Act allows limited confidentiality for legal strategy, that allowance is narrow and temporary. This matter directly affects the public, and any decision made in closed session will ultimately be borne by residents of San Diego County, financially and otherwise. Litigation should not be used to shield this agency from accountability, delay transparency, or manage public perception. It should only be pursued when it clearly serves the public interests and protects residents from greater harm. When this item returns to open session, the public deserves a clear explanation of the decision, the rationale behind it, and the anticipated impact on the public funds. to the fullest extent and that the law allows. Logement. Okay, so transparency, reminder,
Thank you. Your time has
transparency is not
expired.
optional.
Our last public comment is Paul the Bold.
Okay, only one potential case? Wonder who got cheated this time. I wonder if the case has to do with the DBE stuff. Mrs. Richardson's comment on not knowing how to do an essay given 4 issues to highlight was interesting. Maybe intelligence is a factor in all this, which would really be better for us. It's a step forward, and really it's hardly worth the time and effort for the board to meet on a potential case. Maybe you can expand time for public speakers instead. And you can do better, but congratulations on only having or admitting to one. And not sure why you dropped Mrs. Molina's name, although she was brought into the conference last time. That's it. Happy New Year. Good luck on your closed session.
Okay, we're done with those?
Yep.
That concludes our public comment, Chair.
Very good. I was just informed by our attorney that we need to take a vote to extend the meeting, which was supposed to be concluding at 12:15. We still have closed session. So we need to have a motion and a second to extend the meeting time to 12:30. Okay, motion by Minto, second by Casares. Please. And this is to 12:30, so be mindful of that when we go into closed session. There we go. Okay. El Cajon. Okay.
The
Okay.
motion passes with 1 abstention.
Abstention. Okay. All right. So we're going into closed session. Anybody who needs to be here, please stay here. And anybody who doesn't, please leave. And we'll close the doors. And this over to Amber. Got it. Thank you. Thank you. No, I appreciate it. That's what part of the vice chair job, isn't it? Right. Yeah. Okay, please tell us when we're back up. We're ready? All right. Thank you. Welcome back. I'll now turn it over to Lolly for any reportable actions.
Good afternoon. The board met in closed session on item 6, and there are no reportable actions.
Very good. This concludes our meeting. The next board of directors meeting will be January 23rd at 9 a.m. This meeting is adjourned.